Chapter 185. Hear this. Nie Zhong immediately gave his head and did not dare to delay. Guanhai Immortal City is different from Lingri Immortal City and Guang'an Prefecture Immortal City. Guanhai Xianqing does not have a city entrance tax. As long as the Wan Xinghai cultivator enters the Guanhai Xianqing, he does not need to pay taxes. Compared with the city entry tax, Chen Daoxian valued the profits and taxes brought by trade. The actual area of Guanhai Xianqing is very large, even more than Guang'an Palace Xianqing, but most of it is still empty and has not been completed. The actual completed area can only account for about 1/10 of the entire Guanhai Xianqing. Even so, more than 200,000 monks gathered in this small fairy city, which also made the whole fairy city lively enough. Especially today is the day of military pay. A large number of soldiers took spirit stone coins and went to Changping Central Bank in the central block of Guanhai Xianqing to exchange spirit stones. Changping Central Bank has a total of 16 working windows. But tens of thousands of people came to exchange the spirit stones, and the long queues lined up the whole street to become waterlogged. Inside the Changping Central Bank, accompanied by Lei Zhen, Chen Daochuan watched the soldiers who came to exchange spirit stones, feeling a little uneasy in his heart. General Lei, do you think these soldiers can accept the spirit stone coins issued by my Guanhai Xianqing? Lei Zhen thought for a while, then shook his head and said, I don't know about the last general. The young patriarch said that the value of currency depends on the commodity. As long as the spirit stone coins we issue can actually buy medicines such as medicine pills, magic weapons, and spirit charms, it will have value, right? Hearing this, Lei Zhen hesitated and said, like, the military exploits of the Qianyuan sword sect? It's a very vivid metaphor, but it is still different from the military exploits of Qianyuan Jianzong. Chen Daochuan has been trained by Chen Daoxian for nearly a month, and he has almost the deepest understanding of the nature of currency. After Chen Daoxuan's narration, he deeply understood that the industrial development of Shuanghu Island is inseparable from the support of a currency with sufficient circulation. Although the spirit stone is widely circulated, its quantity is not enough. At least in Guang'an, it's not enough. In the crowd, Nie Zhong was in a long line, and it was not easy to wait for him. I saw him looking at the staff in the window and said loudly, exchange 500 spirit stones for me. As he said that, he handed over $500 spirit stone coins. Are you sure you want to exchange 500 spirit stone coins for 500 spirit stones? Sure, please hurry up. Nie Zhong urged. Through the window, he could see the spiritual stones piled up in the mountains, if it weren't for the faint coercion of the foundation building monks exuding in the entire hall. Nie Zhong really had a desperate idea. Suppressing the thought of courting death in his heart, Nie Zhongxi smiled and was about to take the 500 spirit stones. Side window. A panting fat cultivator took out a pile of spirit stones from his storage bag and kept stacking them at the counter. Nie Zhong glanced at it and saw that there were at least hundreds of spirit stones. Trouble, help me exchange all these spirit stones for spirit stone coins, hurry up. The fat cultivator looked irritated, the shopkeepers in these shops are all sick. They don't accept good spirit stones, they all accept spirit stone coins, soon. From time to time, someone in the team took out the spirit stone from the storage bag and exchanged it for spirit stone coins. Hello, do you still want to exchange spirit stones? Inside the window, the staff saw that Nie Zhong did not speak, and asked again and again. Wait a minute. Nie Zhong hesitated. After that, he took the 500 spirit stone coins back from the bank staff. Can this paper money really be spent? Walking out of the Changping Central Bank, Nie Zhong was full of doubts. Walk all the way to a shop selling spirit seeds. Nie Zhong stopped and walked into the store. The treasurer. As soon as he entered the store, Nie Zhong shouted. My dear, what do you want to buy? As soon as he entered the store, an old man in his 60s greeted him with a red face. Our store has all kinds of spiritual rice seeds, spiritual medicine seeds, and a variety of rare spiritual plant seeds. Done. The old man handed over a jade slip and said, "This is the complete picture book of the spirit species. It contains the introduction and price of various spirit species. Please read it." Nie Zhong took the jade slip handed over by the old man, his consciousness sank into it, and he checked it. A long time. Nie Zhong withdrew his consciousness and frowned. "Master, why are the prices marked with spirit stones in your illustrated book? Can't you use spirit stones to buy them?" "Excuse me, guest," the old man smiled and cupped his hands. "According to the decree of Guanhai Xiancheng, starting from today this month, the whole city will implement a new currency, that is, spirit stone coins. If you don't have spirit stone coins, you can go to Changping Central Bank in the central block in exchange for spirit stones." Hearing this, Nie Zhong took out 100 yuan spirit stone coin from the storage bag, and said, "Take a look at the shopkeeper. Is it this kind of paper money? See." The old man took the spirit stone coin from Nie Zhong. I saw him pick up the spirit stone coin, shake it lightly, then carefully look at the pattern on it, and finally took it to his nose and sniffed it, and finally said with a smile, "Yes, this is the currency." "Just this note, worth 100 spirit stones?" Nie Zhong wondered. "Yes, it is worth 100 spirit stones. Can't you take it to Changping Central Bank to exchange spirit stones? What else do you doubt?" Hearing this, Nie Zhong shook his head and said, "I really don't know what this Guanhai Xiancheng is doing." "Who knows?" The old man also sighed with emotion. "Look, guest, you want to buy." Nie Zhong took the spirit stone coins and said with a smile, "Forgive me, shopkeeper, I am a soldier of the coalition army, and I will definitely not be able to buy your spirit seeds for the time being. After 2 years, I will take care of your business after I retire." Hear this. The old man was not angry, and said with a smile, "Guest officer, please go well, and welcome to take care of the old business in the future." Good talk, good talk. Nie Zhong bowed his hands and exited the store. Next. Nie Zhong visited several shops and found that spirit stone coins could actually be spent, and what was even more strange was that the shops in Guanhai Xiancheng did not accept spirit stones. Please forgive me, our Zhang's Spirit Talisman store can't really accept spirit stones. You can take the spirit stones to the Changping Central Bank, exchange them for spirit stone coins, and then go to the store to buy spirit talismans. Shops are running. Among them, there are also shops that secretly collect spirit stones, but these shops were quickly caught by the patrolling soldiers and imposed a very high fine. So far, Nie Zhong rarely sees shops that dare to violate the laws of Guanhai Xiancheng. Seem. Overnight, the currency used in this immortal city changed from spirit stones to banknotes in his hand. Thought here. He tossed the spirit stone coin in his hand, making a rustling sound. Really interesting. Nie Zhong muttered. The Western Defense Zone Coalition Force Station. In a dark dungeon. This dungeon, since its construction, has rarely been used except for occasional soldiers who violated military discipline have been imprisoned. Chen Daoxian walked step by step to a cell inscribed with array patterns. To the soldier next to him, "Open the door." "Yes, Lord Commander." After the soldier bowed and saluted, he quickly opened the cell door. In the cell, a middle-aged cultivator lay on the ground with a pale face, with shackles on his hands and feet, who was not Xia Hong, the former leader of 10,000 soldiers. "Okay, don't pretend, my finger just shattered your air, and didn't hurt your body, you can't die. Hear this." Xia Hong suddenly opened his eyes and roared, "Chen Daoxian, you use your public tools for private use, you are despicable and shameless, you will not succeed in recruiting, you will be jealous, and you will frame the blame for me. Just wait, the Guang'an Prefecture allied forces will definitely give me justice in this matter, and the Qianyuan sword sect will definitely not let you, a scum, be spared." Xia Hong waved his hands excitedly, and the shackles made a clattering sound under his struggle. I remember that the sea of qi in the dantian was broken, and there is a kind of elixir that seems to be able to repair it. What is it called? Chen Daoxian immediately put on a contemplative expression. Yes, Tian Bu Tian Pill, the Tian Bu Tian Pill of the Qinghui Taoist school. Hear this. Xia Hong was immediately hit hard, and then said solemnly, "What do you want to say?" "Actually, I'm very curious. It stands to reason that the conditions for my Chen family to recruit you. Looking at the entire Wangxinghai, there will be no second company that can offer a higher price. You can't be tempted." Chen Daoxian paused. "I think you are a proud person for the time being, even Zifu Dan can't impress you, but I framed you so much in front of everyone yesterday, and you didn't even argue. Is it hard to prove your innocence? The oath of the Great Road and the mirror of the heart can all prove your innocence. Oh, by the way, allegiance to my Chen family must also be pledged to the Great Tao. Why are you so afraid of taking the oath of the Great Way? What are you afraid of?" Xia Hong. Chen Daoxian looked at Xia Hong, who was trembling all over in the dungeon, and smiled. "You wanted to die yesterday, but I didn't expect that I didn't kill you, but abolished you. Don't you think it's too late if you want to live after you got away with it, and now you want to die again?" Although Xia Hong's Dantian Qi Si was destroyed, he was still a foundation-building cultivator. Only, he found that all over his body, even his consciousness was almost frozen by the person in front of him. This man, so strong. Too strong. Xia Hong shivered in his heart. "Xia Hong, I'm not wrong about Xincun who fought in the Battle of Zenangwan back then, right?" Chen Daoxian slowly crouched down in front of him, looking directly into his eyes. "Tell me, how did you come back?" Xia Hong's face turned red and he was speechless. Chen Daoxian squeezed a seal in his hand and pressed it directly on the opponent's body, sealing him all over, leaving only one mouth to move. "Hey hey." A penetrating smile appeared on Xia Hong's face. He stared at Chen Daoxian and said with a strange smile, "Chen Daoxian, do you think you can live? You all have to die, you all have to die. I'm waiting for you below, I'm waiting for you, not good." Chen Daoxian's expression changed, and he quickly stretched out his hand to stop it, but a huge force directly bounced his hand away. Looking again, Xia Hong had already died of anger. See this scene. Chen Daoxian's face was ashen. Chapter 186, looked at Xia Hong who died in front of him. Chen Daoxian felt like there was a stone in his heart. The Battle of Zenangwan, the corpse tied in Guang'an, and the subtle attitude of Qianyuan Jianzong to Zhangzhou over the years. All of this, like a cloud of mist, shrouded Chen Daoxian's heart. This Xia Hong, if his guess is correct, it should be the dark son of the Xianqing Dao League placed in Wangxinghai. In fact, it is not uncommon for major forces to plant spies on each other's territory. Xianqing Dao Alliance can place Anzi in Wangxinghai, and Qianyuan Sword Sect can naturally place Anzi in Xianqing Dao Alliance. It depends on which of the two sides has the better means. But judging from the situation in which the Qianyuan Jianzong family is pressing the opposite two to fight, it is clear that the Qianyuan Jianzong is superior. Chen Daoxian was not worried about this. He just felt that what Xia Hong said before his death seemed to have a point. All to die. Chen Daoxian raised his head. Is he referring to the corpse tied in Guang'an? Shook his head. Chen Daoxian, who did not know what he was referring to, threw the distracting thoughts out of his mind. Now he has too little information to analyze anything at all. But one thing is certain. If you want to deal with all this, you can only strengthen your own strength. Until one day in the future, the Qin family will develop to the point where it can be comparable to or even stronger than Qianyuan Jianzong. These conspiracies are all vulnerable in the face of absolute strength. Think of this. Chen Daoxian silently put away the lavender shadow stone in his hand and walked out of the cell. 1,000 soldiers died in the coalition forces in the Western Defense Area. According to the regulations, he must report it. And what he held in his hand was absolute proof that Xia Hong was a spy. With this evidence in hand, no matter what he said, Chen Daoxian, as the commander of the coalition army, did not have any faults, but made contributions. It's just that Xia Hong died too early. There are still too many things to explain. But if you think about it carefully, since the Xianqing Dao League dared to install an Anzi in Wangxinghai, how could it not leave behind? Even if Xia Hong is sent to Qianyuan Jianzong, it is estimated that it will be difficult to extract any valuable information. Get out of the dungeon. Chen Daoxian glanced at the bright sunshine in the sky, and his mood gradually eased. Right now, the most important thing for the Chen family is to ensure the stable operation of Guanhai Xiancheng. He is almost eager to issue spirit stone coins, which will definitely cause chaos to the development of Guanhai Xiancheng in a short period of time. But Chen Daoxian believed. As long as the monks who reside in Guanhai Xiancheng are convinced that the spirit stone coins can actually be exchanged for spirit stones, there will be no major problems in its circulation in Guanhai Xiancheng. In the final analysis, the spirit stone coins are only equivalent to the silver notes of the ancient past. Is still fundamentally different from modern money that uses credit as collateral. In order to ensure the stable operation of Guanhai Xiancheng, in addition to active business and trade, there is another important factor, which is the protection of force. At this point, the Qin family is very lacking. At present, the military protection of Guanhai Xiancheng completely depends on the strength of the Western Defense Zone coalition forces and Chen Daoxuan's strength comparable to the cultivator of Zifu. The other Chen family cultivators were of no use here. What Chen Daoxian needs to do next is to enhance the strength of the other cultivators of the Chen family. If it weren't for the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic breaking through the second layer, it would have the new function of preaching. Chen Daoxian intends to strengthen the hard power of the Chen family little by little in 10 years or even 100 years. But now, there is a preaching function. He believes that this time will be shortened more than tenfold. Because he himself is a typical example. Shuanghu Island. Chen Daoxian looked at Chen Daochu and Chen Daoyan, and said with a smile, I originally thought that Daochu would build a foundation a year earlier than you, but I didn't expect you two to reach the threshold of foundation building at the same time. Heard this? Chen Daoyan raised her head slightly, her pretty face filled with an unstoppable smile. Chen Daochu said annoyed, Young patriarch, I was dragged down by the heavy research and development tasks in the laboratory. You just let me finish the paper money, and now you let me transform the melting furnace and centrifugal wall breaker. And what kind of spirit is there? Pressing device, laying the aura network of Shuanghu Island. Chen Daochu's mouth kept ranting like a laser gun. Hearing Chen Daoxian shaking his head, he smiled and said, It's hard work for those who are capable. You did a good job with that banknote last time. Not only is the anti-counterfeiting ability first-rate, but it is also easy to manufacture. The most important thing is that you even invented the matching currency detector. Out. But you gave me too many tasks all at once. Didn't you say that you set up the Magical Instrument Research Institute to study high-level spirit armor and war instruments? Chen Daochu was complaining and curious. Yes, but there is no need for research at this time. Chen Daoxian paused. In the jade slips of the Qianyuan Sword Sex War Exploits Exchange, there is a second-order high-grade spirit armor inheritance for exchange. If you can spend money, let's buy it first. If you can't spend money, let's study it ourselves. Heard this? Chen Daochu nodded clearly. As one of the top executives of the Chen family, he is very aware of how terrifying the family's ability to make money is now. The current financial resources of the Chen family mainly come from three parts. The first is naturally the transaction with the East Defense Zone, which can also be called the military supply trade. The second is the elixir shop and the magic weapon shop opened in the immortal city of Guang'an and the immortal city of Lingri. Although the profit of this part is not as huge as the military trade, it is worse than the long run. The third part is the benefits of Guanhai Xiancheng. The interests of Guanhai Xiancheng can be divided into two parts. One part is the profit from the family's property, and the other part is the taxation of other businesses. Although the benefits generated by Guanhai Xiancheng are not comparable to the military supplies trade, it also exceeds the profits brought by the Chen family's industries in Guangganfu Xiancheng and Lingri Xiancheng. And in the future, with the continuous growth of Guanhai Xiancheng, this Xiancheng will become the most important basic business and foreign trade window of the Chen family. This is also the reason why Qin Daoxian was so thoughtful and wanted to change his currency for trading. It seems unnecessary to implement spirit stone coins now. But just because the fairy city is small, the resistance is smaller and the supervision is better. Otherwise, wait until Guanhai Xiancheng really develops to the point where it is comparable to Guang'an Prefecture Xiancheng or even bigger. If the currency is changed at that time, the impact and supervision difficulty will be much greater. People without thought, he must worry about. If Qin Daoxian is an ordinary Qin clan member, of course he doesn't need to think about it in the long run, he only needs to concentrate on improving his own strength. But he is the patriarch of the Qin clan, and his decision is related to the future development of the family. He had to make early plans for the long-term development of the family. I didn't expect that, in a blink of an eye, the two of you are going to build foundations. Time flies really fast. Qin Daoxian looked at Qin Daochu and Qin Daoyan and said with emotion. Yes, Qin Daoyan nodded. Now think about the days we spent in the courtyard of the Chitangshan cave mansion, it's like a dream. Hey. Qin Daochu smirked. In the future, it will get better and better, Qin Daoxian said with a smile. What needs to be paid attention to in foundation building, I have also explained what should be explained. You not only have foundation building Dan, but also the second-grade good luck Balian. As long as you don't mess around, there will be no problem in building the foundation. As for the spiritual veins of foundation building, go to Guanhai Xiancheng. I will use my Lingfu and Guanhai Xiancheng as a foundation for the two of you. The spiritual vein of the family also has a second order, or I will build the foundation in the spiritual vein of the family. Qin Daoyan hesitated. No, let me go to the family's spiritual veins to build the foundation, and let Dao Yan go to watch the Haixian city. I am afraid that she is not serious in her usual practice, and the foundation will have an accident. Who do you say is not serious about cultivation? Qin Daoyan glared with apricot eyes. Okay, don't argue. Are you breaking through the purple mansion? A third-order spiritual vein is not enough for your two qi cultivators to build a foundation. Qin Daoxian waved his hand. Listen to me, go to Guanhai Xiancheng, and I will protect the law for you personally, heard the words. Qin Daoyan and Qin Daochu looked at each other and said in unison, yes, young patriarch. The next day, Qin Daoyan and Qin Daochu are ready to go to Guanhai Xiancheng with Qin Daoxian. Unexpectedly, Qin Xianhe rushed over. Seeing Qin Xianhe, everyone saluted. Uncle 13. Old patriarch. Qin Xianhe nodded with a smile, and then said angrily, you two little guys are finally going to build a foundation. If Qin Daolin didn't tell me about such a big thing, I would have been kept in the dark by you guys. Cough, Uncle 13, this is not a big deal. My Qin family has a second and third foundation building cultivator, isn't this a big deal? Qin Xianhe seemed to point, I see that everything has been going well for you recently, you must have gotten carried away. Seeing that Qin Daoxian was reprimanded by the old patriarch, Qin Daochu and Qin Daoyan covered their mouths and wanted to laugh but didn't dare to laugh. What Uncle 13 taught is. Qin Daoxian only smiled bitterly when he saw this. Several people finished speaking. Qin Daoxian carried the three of Qin Xianhe with a flying sword and came to Guanhai Xiancheng together. Guanhai Xiancheng's forbidden air formation is invalid for monks above the foundation stage, which is quite similar to Lingde Xiancheng. Flew all the way to Qin Daoxuan's Lingfu located in Guanhai Xiancheng. Lowers the light. Qin Daoxian pointed to the two main spiritual eyes in the Lingfu, and said, the two of you are building the foundation, and those two spiritual eyes are respectively I have set up sound insulation and protective formations for the 2 spiritual eyes, plus I am protecting the magic outside. No one will disturb the process of building the foundation. You can rest assured to build the foundation. Yes, young patriarch. Qin Daochu and Qin Daoyan bowed their hands gratefully after hearing this. Watched Qin Daoyan and Qin Daochu enter the secret room to retreat and build the foundation. Qin Daoxian turned around, looked at Qin Xian and said, Uncle 13, is there anything you want to tell me? Qin Daoxian is so sensitive. From the attitude of Qin Xianhe just now, it can be seen that he has nothing to say. Qin Xianhe looked at Qin Daoxian with deep meaning on his face and said, I heard that you got a new kind of talisman in Guanhai Xiancheng to replace the transaction of Lingshi in Xiancheng. That's true. Qin Daoxian nodded. Daoxian, Qin Xianhe warned, this kind of talisman can only be used inside Guanhai Xiancheng, and must not be used outside, not even in Guang'an Prefecture. After finished speaking, he stared at him intently. My Qin family is still too weak, I have nothing to rely on except you. I see, Uncle 13. Qin Daoxian nodded heavily. The number of cultivators of the Taoist generation is too small, and when the Fuzi generation really grows up, the Qin family can truly be considered the 3rd largest family in Guang'an Prefecture. Otherwise, the 3rd largest family in Guang'an Mansion, supported by Qin Daoxian alone, would not live up to its name. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, 3 years have passed. In the past 3 years, thanks to the Qin family's support and supplementation of the frontline medicinal herbs and instruments in the rear, the East Defense Zone has been victorious in the war against the Lianhua Island Corps Group. Has repressed the opponent back to the main island of the Lotus Archipelago, which is the corpse refining ground that Qin Daoxian and Zhou Mubai explored. However, the 3rd Order Yin Meridian has become a 4th Order Yin Meridian after years of management by Brother Sun Fu. It is densely covered with various formations, and the yin suffocation is permeating. Even if the ordinary cultivator in the qi refining stage takes the Pasha Dan, he cannot resist the attack of this thick yin and suffocation. Therefore, Zhou Mubai had no choice but to blockade the island. The direction of his gap is exactly the direction of Zhangzhou Xiancheng. Zhou Mubai's plan is very simple, let the corpses of Lotus Island go to scourged Zhangzhou Xiancheng. The 2 sides have been fighting for so long. Although the corpse group on Lotus Island has been wiped out by millions, the remaining number is probably as many as nearly 10 million. Such a huge group of corpses, plus the 4th Order Yin veins. Even if Guang'an Prefecture can completely wipe out this corpse tide, the monks in the entire Guang'an Prefecture would have to lose hundreds of thousands or more. After all, fighting on the main island of Lotus Island is no better than fighting on various Chengguan Islands. There is the home field of the corpse group. If the cultivator goes there to fight, the true energy in the body will be greatly suppressed. One side's strength is damaged, and the other side's strength is increased. This reduction increases, and the strength gap between cultivators and ordinary zombies in the qi refining period will be shortened in an instant, and it will be severely damaged by then. Zhou Mubai was of course unwilling to suffer this kind of loss, even if the loss was not entirely to his Zhou family, but mostly to loose cultivators in Guang'an House. But these scattered repairs are the basic plan of the Guang'an House family, and they are also very important to the Zhou family. Guang'an Prefecture Xiancheng. Zhou's residence. A ray of light streaked across the sky. As the light descends, the figure of a person appears. I saw a handsome cultivator wearing a white Taoist robe, a jade crown, and a handsome face walking towards a hall where the Zhou family resided. Inside the main hall, a red-haired cultivator was cultivating, his consciousness moved slightly, and Zhang Yu opened his eyes when he saw the person coming. Immediately got up and walked out of the hall, and greeted the person who came. 3 years have passed. Chen Daoxuan's appearance has not changed at all compared to 3 years ago. The only thing that has changed is his cultivation, which has just broken through from the 1st floor of the foundation building to the 3rd floor of the foundation building. saw the change in Qin Daoxuan's cultivation. Zhang Yu raised his fiery red brows slightly and said with a smile, I haven't seen you for a long time, and Dao Yu Chen has made great progress in his cultivation. Senior Zhang is too famous. Chen Daoxian cupped his hands and said straight to the point, I'm here this time for the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda. It has already been prepared for fellow Daoist Chen, please come with me. Hearing the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda, Zhang Ye's face became serious. Speaking of which, the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda is the most valuable instrument that the Qin family exchanged for the Qianyuan sword sect with their military exploits. 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda is a 4th-order magic weapon, but due to its special function and expensive price, it can almost be compared to a 5th-order magic tool. In order to buy this magic weapon, the Qin family almost used up all the military exploits accumulated in the past few years. To know. As the production capacity of the Qinjia Spirit Medicine Factory and the Magical Instrument Factory increased step by step, the merits earned by the Qin family on the front line every month are increasing visibly to the naked eye. Over the past 3 years, the Qin family has earned a total of no less than 1 million in the front line. On the merits of war, in the entire Guang'an prefecture, it is only less than the Zhou family who both fought on the front line and provided various resources in the rear. 1 million great merits, converted into spirit stones, is as many as 100 million spirit stones. Can be imagined how much wealth the Qin family has accumulated in the arms trade in recent years. It is said that making money from war is the fastest way to accumulate wealth. After this war between Guang'an Prefecture and the Corpse Group on Lotus Island, Qin Daoxian finally felt a little bit. Just a small fight of this scale between Guang'an Prefecture and the Lianhua Island Corpse Tide let the Qin family eat belly fat. The war between Wan Xinghai and Izumo will be such a vast market for all kinds of medicinal herbs and instruments consumed. Qin Daoxian is simply unimaginable. Of course, although the Qin family is greedy for the profits, at present, they cannot find a way to intervene in it. After all, the Qin family has a shallow foundation and can still be famous in Guang'an Prefecture. If not, then using the storage bag to store the storage bag, wouldn't it be possible to have infinite nesting of dolls and have infinite space, which is obviously impossible. Qin Daoxian was promoted to the 3rd floor of the foundation building. The real essence of Dantian Qi Si has completely reached the limit state real essence described in Qianyuan Sword Classic. In other words, in the foundation establishment stage, no matter how Qin Daoxian cultivated, the strength of his true essence could no longer be improved to any extent. The only thing he can improve is the amount of real essence. Actually, owning the 2nd grade fortune balian, the natal instrument, Qin Daoxian does not lack the amount of real essence. Therefore, for a long time in the future, if he wants to improve his strength, he can only work on the realm of Kendo, secret arts and foreign objects. Needless to say about the realm of Kendo, Qin Daoxian has devoted most of his epiphany opportunities in the past 3 years to the realm of Kendo. Now his Kendo realm has been elevated to a level where the double tangible sword intent is quite profound. The dim starlight in the original Dantian Qi Si has also become extraordinarily bright, like a small star. When this star is completely condensed and formed, Qin Daoxuan's Kendo realm will step into the 3rd realm, and the sword will transform into a star. In addition to the realm of Kendo, Qin Daoxian also cultivated a special secret technique to strengthen the defense of the physical body, called the Vajra body, which can also be considered to make up for the weakness of his own defense. Chapter 188. In addition to the realm of Kendo and secret techniques. In addition, the only thing that can greatly improve his strength is all kinds of foreign objects. The foreign objects here mainly refer to various instruments. For example, high-level flying swords, defensive spirit armor, auxiliary magic weapons, etc. A high-grade flying sword, he has a 3rd-grade high-grade flying sword rainbow lightsaber that he received from Yang Linyuan, the ancestor of the Yang family. The defensive spirit armor is slightly insufficient, but he also has a 2nd-order top-grade natal spirit armor that he tailored for him. Of course. The inheritance of the second-order spirit armor of the Qin family is also the exchange of military exploits from the Qianyuan sword sect. This second-order spiritual armor inheritance cost the Qin family a total of 100,000 merits, which is almost worth one-fifth of the price of this 9 ruins Linglong pagoda. Although over the past 3 years, the Qin family has accumulated millions of merits. But to exchange these two things, it took more than 600,000 great works. It can be seen that the more precious the treasure, the more exaggerated the cost. However, this cost is for the Qin family nothing at all. In the war between the East Defense Zone and the Lianhu Island Corps Group, the Qin family earned not only military exploits, but also a large number of spirit stones, because the Qin family's pills and magic weapons have always been settled in half by combat exploits and spirit stones. That is to say, the Qin family has earned a total of over 100 million spirit stones in this military supply trade. The bulk of it is earned from pills. With the profit rate of pills, the pure profit earned by the Qin family is about 70 million spirit stones, which is only the profit from the military supply trade. Besides, there are also the industrial profits of the Qin family in Guang'an Prefecture's Xiancheng and Lingri Xiancheng, as well as the increasingly prosperous Guanhai Xiancheng. Especially Guanhai Xiancheng. In the past 3 years, due to Qin Daoxuan's low-tax support for merchants and loose cultivators in Guanhai Xiancheng, the Central Bank of Chongping has also implemented loan support policies for various potential families and loose cultivators. As a result, the commerce and trade of Guanhai Xiancheng has become increasingly active. More and more families came to Guanhai Xiancheng to operate their own industries. As a result, it also attracted a large number of loose cultivators. 3 years ago, according to the rough statistics of the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone, there were about 300,000 monks gathered in the entire Western Defense Zone. 3 years later, this figure doubled to more than 600,000. Although these more than 600,000 monks are not all gathered in Guanhai Xiancheng. Qin Daoxian returned to Shuanghu Island. Looking at the newly promoted third-order spiritual vein of the family, Qin Daoxian was full of pride. 10 million spirit stones. Once upon a time, it was an astronomical sum for the Qin family, but for the Qin family now, 10 million spirit stones, but nothing. When he saw that the Zhou family was an allied army of Guang'an Prefecture, they smashed 500 million spirit stones in one go, so scared that he didn't dare to speak at the time. Now it seems that, as a big family in Guang'an Prefecture, it is ridiculous that they can't even get 100 million spirit stones. You must know that if the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda in Qin Daoxuan's hands was put up for auction at the auction house, it would probably be auctioned for a sky-high price of more than 50 million spirit stones. This price is already comparable to the average 5th-order magic weapon. In the entire Guang'an mansion, only the Zhou family is so arrogant and equipped with such expensive instruments for tempering the clan's children. Descend the light of escape. Qin Daoxian found that Uncle 13 and a group of people of the blessed generation were all waiting for him. Bought it back. Qin Xianhe looked at Qin Daoxian excitedly. Qin Daoxian stretched out his palm, and a cyan pagoda was overflowing with light in his palm. Good, good, good. Qin Xianhe was at a loss and wanted to touch this pagoda, but he didn't dare to touch it for fear of breaking it. See. Qin Daoxian personally handed the blue pagoda to his hand, and said with a smile, Uncle 13, touch it quickly, or I won't be able to put it in my hand and play with it later. Hear this. Qin Xianhe immediately took it into his hand and touched it. I have long heard that the Zhou family has a Taishu illusion that tempers the elite disciples of the clan. I didn't expect that today, my Qin family will also have the opportunity to get this kind of treasure. Qin Xianhe was so excited that he didn't know what to say. Just under 20 years. The Qin family has undergone earth-shaking changes. From a family with no spiritual veins, it has become a big family with 2 third-order spiritual veins, 17 second-order spiritual veins, and 21 first-order spiritual veins. From a family with only 2 monks, old and young, it has become a large family with 1 monk in the Xianzi generation, 10 monks in the Taoist generation, and 617 monks in the Blessing generation. Not to mention that the Qin family still controls a fairy city, and even issued its own currency in this fairy city. On this point, neither of the Zhou Yang family did it. Of course, they probably didn't think of it, or felt that doing so would be too much of a hindrance. But no matter what, among the 3 immortal cities in Guang'an Prefecture, only the immortal city of Guanhai uses a unique paper currency such as Lingshi coins. And because the Qin family has good credit, the cultivators in Guanhai Xianqing do not reject the use of such banknotes. Even some loose cultivators and small family cultivators began to take the initiative to deposit their spiritual stones in the Chongping Central Bank in exchange for spiritual stone coins. This is undoubtedly a good phenomenon for the currency issued by the Qin family. These years. Look at the changes in the family. Qin Xianhe has deeply felt that he can't point Qin Daoxian at all. Although he has been the patriarch of the Qin clan for decades, after all, it is only a crumbling small clan with only a few thousand people including the mortal population. How can it be compared with the prosperous scene of the Qin family today? What Qin Xianhe can do now is to teach the children of the blessed generation in the clan to show his last light and heat in the clan. The crowd was excited. Follow behind Qin Daoxian and watch him place the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda. Looking at the open space in front of me that was specially vacated for the 9 ruins Linglong Tower. Qin Daoxian flew into the sky with a flash of light. He was dragging the Cyan Pagoda with his left hand, and the mysterious control technique on his right hand kept circulating, as if he was opening some kind of restriction on the Cyan Pagoda. Next moment, the Cyan Pagoda seemed to be activated under the operation of Qin Daoxian. I saw Qin Daoxian throw it on the vacated flat ground. The Cyan Pagoda rose sharply in the wind. From a mini tower less than 6 inches high, it has skyrocketed 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times. Boom! Under the control of Qin Daoxian, the Cyan 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda slowly landed on the open space. There was a loud, earth-shaking noise. The Qin family standing below were shocked and speechless when they saw the huge pagoda that was more than 100 feet high in front of them. You must know that tall buildings of more than 100 feet, even in their previous lives, were small well-known tall buildings. Moreover, this is not the highest form of the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda. According to the introduction in Qianyuan Jianzong's exchange of jade slips, the Linglong Pagoda of the 9 ruins can reach a height of 900 zhang. Of course, for the current Qin family, there is absolutely no need to raise it so high. Anyway, it was something that Qin Daoxian manipulated at will. After the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda was placed, Qin Daoxian lowered his escape light, looked at the tall tower in front of him, and said with a smile, "Go, let's go in." Okay. Oh. The disciples of Fuzi life cheered, and they knew that, strictly speaking, this 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda was bought for them. The presence of this group of people from the Fu family is not simple. Counting them carefully, there are 54 people in this batch of Fuzi generation, all of which were carefully selected by Qin Daoxian from the family Fuzi cultivators in recent years. The oldest of them is Qin Fusheng, who is only 9 years old. The youngest is Qin Fuwang, who is only 5 years old this year. But without exception, they are all specially designed by Qin Daoxian, students of the missionary hall. The so-called preaching hall is a school specially established by Qin Daoxian according to the preaching function of the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic. There are only 3 courses of alchemy, and kendo for the time being. These 54 disciples of the Blessed Generation are the students of the kendo class selected by Qin Daoxian from the more than 600 Blessed Generation members of the Qin family. It is also a clan that the Qin family cultivated as a core disciple. The conditions for entering the mission hall are quite harsh. Not only do you have to accept the strictest family loyalty education from a young age, but you also have to make an oath before entering that you will never betray your family. Whether it's weapon refining, alchemy, or students in the Kendo class, this is the case. The preaching function of the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic is too powerful, and Qin Dao Xian has to be careful again and again. But with such a powerful function, he could not abandon it. We can only give the double insurance of thought and the oath of the Great Way to the monks of the family who accept the preaching. Chapter 189. Okay, since you are going to class, I won't disturb you. The students of ethnic studies are still waiting for me. Just as everyone was about to go to the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda, Qin Xianhe said with a smile. Uncle 13. Go. Qin Xianhe waved his hand. Qin Dao Xian bowed his hands and walked slowly towards the interior of the Blue Pagoda with 54 elites of the family's blessing generation. Qin Xianhe glanced at the people who were drifting away, smiled, used the wind control technique, and flew in the direction of the clan. Walk to the gate of Linglong Pagoda of 9 ruins. As if sensing the master's arrival, the door of the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda opened automatically with a rumbling sound. It is said that magical tools above the 4th rank will have an additional direction of spiritual wisdom. This is probably the tool spirit of the Blue Pagoda. With their heads held high, they took the lead in approaching the Cyan Pagoda, and the elite children of the blessing generation followed behind and filed in. Next second, everyone walked together to an incomparably wide space inside the tower. There are 9 floors in the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda, each of which can be set up with 9 levels of Taishu illusions. These 9 levels of illusions can be set up according to the user's own needs. Generally speaking, big families and sects will choose several kinds of grinding illusions. For example, the illusion that sharpens the disciple's state of mind, the illusion that enhances the disciple's combat experience, and the illusion that enhances the small-scale cooperation of the disciples and large-scale collective battles. The first time Qin Dao Xian saw the Zhou family cultivator fight against the Mer people, thousands of the Zhou family cultivators gathered together and released the sword formation, which defeated the beasts controlled by the Mer people in a single encounter. It can be said to be powerful to the extreme. In detail, not every disciple of the Zhou family has a very high cultivation level, and most of them are even cultivators in the late stage of qi refining. But this group of Zhou family cultivators, who were nearly 10 times less than the mercenary tribe, defeated the mercenary tribe 10 times as many as them and the beasts that were more numerous. It's not tough. Compared with those scattered cultivators, the two are not at the same level. Qin Dao Xian estimated that even if the number of loose cultivators and Zhou cultivators were the same, their cultivation bases would be equal. If the two sides fought against each other on a large scale, it was estimated that the scattered cultivators would not be able to last a round in the hands of the Zhou family cultivators, and they would be defeated by the Zhou family cultivators, and then it would be considered a one-sided massacre. This is the difference between trained and untrained. True. The first determinant of a cultivator's strength is cultivation, but when everyone's cultivation has not opened a huge gap, other factors are also very important. This includes combat experience and the cooperation between monks. The reason why the coalition forces in the Western Defense Area are weak is not only because the number of coalition forces in the Western Defense Area is the smallest, but also because the coalition forces in the Western Defense Area are completely composed of scattered cultivators. These loose cultivators seldom undergo formal militarization training, and with the loss of Zhenangguan, very few of them have even been on the front lines. Let me ask, how much combat power can an army composed of such a group of monks have? Maybe alone, they can make a difference. If it is a large-scale battle, a well-trained army of monks can defeat them in a single encounter. Owner. As soon as he stepped into the first floor of the pagoda, a childlike voice sounded in the empty first floor. Are you the tower spirit of the Linglong Tower of the 9 ruins? Yes, master. The young child's voice replied again. After pondering for a moment, Qin Dao Xian communicated with his consciousness, as far as I know, you should have the ability to set up illusions, but I don't know how to set them up. The 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda comes with 9 kinds of illusions, and the illusions on each floor are different. If the master wants to add or delete certain things in the environment, he can communicate with me directly. However, the setting of the illusion still needs to consider the issue of authenticity. If the things added by the master are too different from the original content of the illusion, it will cause the illusion to be too illusory and lose its sense of reality. Therefore, the owner needs to think about what to add or subtract. What is the illusion on the first floor? Master, please see. The words just finished. The scene in front of everyone suddenly changed. In Qin Daoxuan's sea of knowledge, the golden scriptures shook slightly. He suddenly realized that if he wanted, he could get rid of the illusion in front of him at any time. But other cultivators of the blessing generation did not have this ability. Watching the scene in front of them suddenly changed from the quiet and peaceful environment in the pagoda to the foot of the city gate with a sluggish atmosphere. The older monks of the Fuzi generation were fine, while the younger monks were directly stunned by the sight in front of them. Kill! Before everyone came back to their senses, a scream of killing sounded behind everyone. I saw a group of cultivators from the enemy army of the Izumo kingdom, wearing spirit armor, with a number of about 100, flying towards the crowd. Before anyone arrived, a sword formation composed of 100 flying swords rushed towards the crowd. What? It wasn't just anyone who exclaimed, and immediately fell to the ground in fright. Chen Fusheng was the eldest, but in the face of this hopeless scene, his mouth was dry, and his whole body was trembling unconsciously. 100 cultivators in the late stage of qi refining, wearing first-order high-grade spirit armor, and experienced in battle formations, they knew how to form formations. Such an opponent. Not to mention them, even Qin Daoxian, who was in the qi refining period, had to run away immediately. Although Chen Fusheng was extremely frightened, he patted the storage bag around his waist, and the spirit armor quickly covered his entire body. Nearly 4 years. Under Qin Daoxuan's intensive care, Chen Fusheng's cultivation base has been promoted to the 8th level of qi refining. This speed can be said to be the first of its kind for all the cultivators in Guang'an Prefecture. But thinking of the various resources smashed on him, let alone the big clan in Guang'an Prefecture would not do this, even the Qianyuan sword sect couldn't be so arrogant and invested so much in a mere qi refining cultivator. Unless this qi refining cultivator is a direct descendant of a high-level Qianyuan sword sect. It is almost the same for the high-level to pay for it out of their own pockets. The more powerful it is, the more formalized and institutionalized it is to train disciples. It is impossible to play like the Qin family. Besides, the foundation building in the early years and the foundation building in the later years did not affect the monks that much. There are many cultivators, who invested resources wildly in the early stage, and their cultivation bases improved rapidly. After the foundation was established, it was limited by talent and understanding, and after the slow progress of the cultivation, so that the gap was too large, there were countless examples. Therefore, sometimes it is not a good thing to improve the cultivation base too fast during the qi refining period, but it is easy for the cultivator to lose himself. To a certain extent, the Qin family's training mode for the kendo class monks in the preaching hall is indeed a kind of encouragement. However, the number of these monks of the blessing generation is not large, and Qin Daoxian is always watching over them to guide their mood. For the time being, there is no such problem. More importantly, with the preaching function, the kendo realm of these cultivators of the blessing generation, such as Chen Fusheng, has already touched the threshold of sword intent. Now I am comprehending the spell Dao pattern in various spells, and I want to integrate Dao into the sword. Once successful, he will become the Qin family's second qi refining period to realize the existence of sword intent, and he is much younger than Qin Daoxian. Although the other monks of the Fu character generation did not receive preaching for as long as Chen Fusheng did, they almost all practiced one or several first-order sword arts to the perfect state. The strength far exceeds that of the qi refining cultivators of the same rank. In addition, each of them is equipped with the best first-order high-grade flying swords, the spirit armor of life, and the white lotus of good fortune unique to the Qin family. As for foreign objects such as spiritual talismans, they are not lacking. Therefore, In terms of real strength, the oldest of them is no more than 9 years old, and the youngest is no more than 5 years old. Compared with the strength of the 100 enemy monks of the Izumo country in front of him, it is much stronger. But in terms of experience against the enemy, and more importantly, the state of mind against the enemy, they are still far behind. Except for Qin Fusheng, all the monks of the Blessing generation present were deterred by the murderous aura of this group of monks from Izumo. Qin Daoxian stared coldly at the scene in front of him. He knew that this was a hurdle that the group of monks of the Blessing generation had to go through. This group of people, there will be no accident in the future, all of them will enter the military department of the Qin family in the future, which is the military department of the Qin family as envisaged by Qin Daoxian. It is the military guarantee to guard the Qin family. Their strength may not be the strongest, but they must not be weak, let alone fear the enemy. Otherwise, no matter how high your cultivation base is, no matter how strong your strength is, you will still be a waste, just like Yi Wudao, the ancestor of the Yi family. Kill! Qin Fusheng's tender voice broke the silence. A flying sword glowing with blue light erupted with a sword light up to 9 feet long, and charged towards the enemy. The sword formation of the Izumo cultivator was soon torn apart by Qin Fusheng's flying sword and killed the enemy. However, although Qin Fusheng was strong, the sword formation on the opposite side was made by 100 cultivators after all. As soon as Jinguang tore a gap, it was blocked by the follow-up flying swords. Qin Fusheng's flying sword suddenly fell into a quagmire. With one enemy and 100 cultivators who are proficient in sword formation coordination, even with Qin Fusheng's cultivation level far exceeding the opponent's, it would be a bit tricky. How to fight this? At this time, the other monks of the Blessing generation finally came to their senses. They all took out flying swords and attacked the monks of Izumo. There are more than 50 monks of the Blessing generation, and their kendo level far exceeds that of the monks of the same level. The power of each person's flying sword is at least twice as strong as that of the monks of the same level. With the addition of these 50 flying swords, the sword formation of 100 Izumo monks was torn to shreds in an instant. Next. It's a one-sided slaughter. Less than half a cup of tea before and after. After the last Izumo cultivator was beheaded on the spot by a cultivator of the Fuzi generation, everyone withdrew from the illusion. Hoo hoo. Ha ha ha, win. They are not as strong as they appear in their aura. The power of each flying sword is so weak. Yes, it scared me to death at first. This group of cultivators of the Blessing generation were all overjoyed, but Qin Daoxuan's face was already ashen. Call. He breathed a long sigh of relief and forcibly suppressed the swearing words from his mouth. Think carefully. This is the first time the cultivator of the Lucky generation has participated in the battle. Isn't it normal to have such a behavior? He thought that the first time he participated in the battle was when he cooperated with a group of loose cultivators to kill a first-order blood-spotted sea snake. Wasn't he also excited at that time? Think of this. Qin Daoxuan's mentality gradually calmed down. Chapter 190. Everyone walked out of the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda. Seemingly noticing Qin Daoxuan's unkind expression, the cultivators of the blessed generation all restrained their complacent expressions. Sudden. Qin Daoxian paused. Seeing this, everyone stopped and looked up at Qin Daoxian. Fusheng. Young Patriarch. Qin Fusheng stepped forward and bowed his hands. From tomorrow onwards, you will bring the cultivators of the Kendo class to the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda for trials every day. Starting from the first floor, you will gradually increase the difficulty of the illusion of trial. Yes, young Patriarch. Qin Fusheng understood that the young Patriarch must be dissatisfied with their performance just now. This made Qin Fusheng blame himself. All along, the person he admired the most in his heart was the young Patriarch in front of him. From a young age, he grew up listening to Qin Daoxuan's story, and then entered the clan, and was selected by the young clan chief to join the Kendo class of the preaching hall. Chen Fusheng knew that this kendo class was the prototype of the Chen family's military department in the future. This group of monks of the blessing character generation shoulders the heavy responsibility of defending the Chen clan. Every member of the family has great expectations of them. Thinking of the ordinary clansmen and unqualified monks who worked hard in the industrial area, Chen Fusheng felt extraordinarily guilty. How can their performance today be worthy of the Chen clan who worked so hard in the Feijian factory and the medicine pill factory? How to be worthy of the daily teaching of the young patriarch? Thinking of this, Chen Fusheng swore in his heart. You must pass the illusion test of the 9 ruins Linglong Pagoda as soon as possible, and at the same time, you must comprehend the sword intent as soon as possible and become a true sword cultivator. He knew that with his own cultivation, he could only truly become the backbone of the Chen family by breaking through the foundation building stage as soon as possible and becoming a sword cultivator. This can be seen by looking at the gap between the young patriarch and the ordinary foundation cultivator. Just when Chen Daoxian was in a bad mood, Chen Daochu sent him a piece of good news that lifted his spirits. Chongping Institute of Magical Instruments. When Chen Daoxian found Chen Daochu, he found that he was discussing something with a group of monks of the blessing generation. In front of them, a brand new melting furnace and a centrifugal wall breaker with a greatly changed appearance were located in the laboratory. I looked at these two strange instruments with great interest. Chen Daoxian coughed lightly, interrupting everyone's debate. Young patriarch. Chen Daochu turned around and saw Chen Daoxian, with a look of joy in his eyes. He stepped forward in 3 or 2 steps and bowed to Chen Daoxian. When the other monks of the blessing generation saw Chen Daoxian, they all bowed their hands and said, I have seen the young patriarch. Don't be too polite. Chen Daoxian waved his hand, then pointed to the 2 instruments in the laboratory, and said, This is your improved Rongling furnace and centrifugal wall breaker? Right. Chen Daochu nodded heavily. Young patriarch, look. He pointed to one end of the Rongling stove, and saw a glue-packed transparent line connecting one end of the Rongling stove, and this Rongling stove had no spirit stones. See this. Chen Daoxian was overjoyed and said excitedly, You succeeded. Fortunately not humiliated. Chen Daochu bowed his hands. Unexpectedly, in more than 3 years, Chen Daochu not only completed the transformation of the new melting furnace and centrifugal wall breaker, but also integrated the spiritual net that Chen Daoxian had not finished. At that time, Chen Daoxian planned to use the spirit thread refined from spirit stone powder to transport spirit energy, instead of spirit stone to power these 2 special instruments. The result has been stuck on the spiritual pressure problem. Later, Chen Daoxian encountered more and more things, so he put this matter in the back of his mind. However, with the continuous expansion of the Shuanghu Island industrial zone, the consumption of spirit stones is increasing. In the past, there were only less than 10 Rongling furnaces, and the annual consumption of spiritual stones was naturally not that much. But now, there are hundreds of Rongling furnaces and centrifugal wall breakers. The Feijian factory and the pharmaceutical factory have also been expanded several times, and the scale is no longer comparable to the original. This is just 3 years of development. Later, with the increasing number of monks of the blessing generation and the explosive growth of the monks of the Zizi generation, the scale of the Shuanghu Island industrial zone will also expand at the same rate. Because all along, it has never been machines, but the number of cultivators from the Chen family, that has limited the expansion of the Shuanghu Island industrial zone. To know. When the mortals of the same age as the Fu character grow up, the number of clansmen who give birth to the Zhe character will be 10 times or even dozens of times that of the Fu character. By then, the cultivators of the Chen family will not be hundreds or thousands, but tens of thousands or even tens of thousands. It can be imagined to what extent the scale of the Shuanghu Island industrial zone has to be expanded. Therefore, the power problem is already an imminent problem. Using spiritual stones as power, I am afraid that several third-order spiritual veins can be burned in a year. No matter how wealthy the Chen family was, they would still feel the pain. Young patriarch, look, this is the spiritual pressure device we invented. Chen Daochu pointed to a black box-shaped magic weapon and said, this is a small spiritual pressure device that we use for experiments. When we build the spiritual line network covering the Shuanghu Island industrial zone, we need to build a giant spiritual pressure device that is at least 100 times larger than this one. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian nodded and said, how did you solve the spiritual pressure problem? Formation. Having said that, Chen Daochu handed over a jade slip and said, it's a bit troublesome to explain, the young patriarch should look at our technical data. Now that Chen Daochu uses the new term of Chen Daoxian, it is very natural. Chen Daoxian took the jade slip in Chen Daochu's hand and sank his consciousness into it. A full cup of tea. Chen Daoxian just withdrew from his consciousness. He probably understood the working principle of this spiritual pressure device. In simple terms, this spiritual pressure device uses the formation method to create a high-intensity spiritual pressure on a section of the spiritual line, forcing the spiritual energy to flow in the spiritual line. The other end of the spiritual pressure device can be connected to the spiritual lake of the third-order spiritual meridian, converting the spiritual liquid in the spiritual lake into aura and instilling it into the spiritual line. In this way, it can drive the operation of the entire spiritual line network. The power source of Shuanghu Island Industrial Zone has also changed from Lingshi to the third-order spiritual vein of the Chen family. Seeing this, Chen Daoxian couldn't help but praise Chen Daochu's fantastic idea. Really? No matter which world people are, there is no lack of innovative spirit. What they lack is often the guidance in the process of growth. Chen Daochu has been influenced by Chen Daoxian since he was a child, and his natural thinking is completely different from people in this world, and is closer to the people of Chen Daoxuan's previous life. Chen Daoxuan's positioning of Chen Daochu is also very clear, a talent researching magical instruments. Because when it comes to Ling Zhen, although Chen Daochu is not bad, he does not have many advantages compared with Tianling and Cultivator. The most important thing is that Chen Daochu's kendo talent and fighting talent are not strong. Not suitable for taking the road of fighting talents. This can be seen from the fact that he has been in contact with the wind-chasing sword art for several years, until he is about to build a foundation, and he has not been able to cultivate this sword art to the realm of mastery. Chen Daochu was not very talented in kendo and spells. On the contrary, Chen Daoxian, who has been scolded by Chen Daoxian for his innate talent for refining, is the most talented among all the cultivators in the Chen family except Chen Daoxian. In less than 10 years, he is now a second-order high-grade artifact refiner. At least 3 years, as many as 5 years, Chen Daochu will have the opportunity to be promoted to the level of the third-order refiner. This kind of refining talent, even if it is placed in the Qianyuan sword sect, is a unique existence. Of course, the premise is that there is the blessing of preaching Chen Daoxian. Otherwise, he can only be regarded as an artifact refining genius at best, and he is far from being the best in the world. Seeing the Reiki network thing finally came to an end, Chen Daoxian was overjoyed and said, "Is there enough spirit stone powder?" "Don't worry, young patriarch, whether it's the spiritual veins cultivated by my Chen family, or the third-order spiritual veins in Guanhai Xiancheng, the spiritual stones that have exhausted the spiritual energy, all of them have been stored by us." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian nodded, "Although there is enough spirit stone powder now, we have to plan ahead." After thinking for a while, "Forget it, I will let Daolin take charge of this matter, and let him go to Guang'an Mansion Xiancheng and Linghui Xiancheng to buy spirit stones that have exhausted aura, so you don't have to worry about it. Your task now is to replace all the Rongling furnaces and centrifugal wall breakers in the Shuanghu Island industrial zone for my Chen family. In addition to building the aura network, the task is very heavy." After speaking, he glanced at everyone and said, "Can you do it with less than 30 of you? Hear this." Chen Daochu looked bitter, and said, "There are hundreds of magical instruments that can be replaced in the 2 factories. In addition to the installation of the spiritual energy network, I am afraid that there is really not enough manpower." Chen Daoxian nodded understandingly and said, well, I'll stay here to help you during this time, and let's do this together. The Reiki network is about the foundation of Chen's industry. Chen Daoxian had to be taken seriously. And there really aren't many suitable people right now. Although there are more than 600 members of the Fuzi generation now, more than 200 are still taking classes in the clan, and 54 full-time Fuzi monks and more than 20 Fuzi monks from the Institute of Magical Instruments are excluded. There are only more than 300 monks of the Blessing generation who participated in the production in the two factories. These people support most of the Chen family's economic resources. Chen Daoxian is not easy to move. He had no choice but to roll up his sleeves as the young patriarch and go on it himself. Anyway, he has been used to doing this kind of thing himself over the years. In the beginning, it was only by relying on his hands-on first-line production in the magic tool factory that he accumulated the first original capital of the Chen family, and now the third largest family in Guang'an Prefecture. The next days. The Shuanghu Island industrial zone has entered into a fiery reconstruction. This reconstruction may not substantially improve industrial production capacity, but it solves the problem of industrial power. It's like switching from battery power to grid power. It not only further saves costs, but also lays a solid foundation for future industrial expansion. Just when Shuanghu Island was undergoing Reiki network transformation, there was a new change in the corpse refining grounds on Lianhua Island, which was far away 100,000 miles away. In the Fourth Order Yin. In a terrifying hall with a strong Yin evil spirit, a young monk suddenly sat up from the cold ground. Jia Jia, big brother, he's awake. Chapter 191. I heard what my brother Sun Mang said. Sun Fu turned his head, and his dark golden eyes stared at the chi-refining cultivator in front of him, his eyes cold and penetrating. In the eyes of young chi cultivators, the scene in front of me was like hell. The hall that used to be full of immortality in the Zhao family has long since become eerie. Outside the hall, the faint mass of corpses made the hands and feet of this young chi-refining cultivator go weak. Boy, in order to bring you back alive, I have damaged a corpse servant of the Z Mansion. Tell me, how should this account be calculated? Sun Mang approached the chi-refining cultivator little by little, and a disgusting corpse stench spewed out of his mouth. The young chi-refining cultivator only took a sip before feeling dizzy and wobbly. It's really fragile. Sun Mang frowned, big brother. Sun Fu nodded. Jia Jia. With Sun Fu's approval, Sun Mang smiled cruelly, his pitch-black fingernails stroked lightly, stirring the air with a chi-chi sound. What? If you don't speak, are you dumb? As he said that, he put away the corpse poison on his nails, and gently scratched the other's skin, and the black blood seeped out instantly. What? The young chi cultivator burst out with a whimper, but he remained firm and did not speak. See this scene. Sun Mang grabbed his legs cruelly, and then tore them apart a little bit with force. This feeling is really comfortable, hee. Ah! The young cultivator's miserable howl got smaller and smaller, until at the end, there was no breath at all. Tearing a cultivator in half alive, Sun Mang lifted half of his body and dragged him to another middle-aged cultivator lying on the ground. He said gloomily, since you are awake, stop pretending. You. The middle-aged cultivator lying on the ground abruptly sat up, and while pointing at the other side, he kept retreating, trembling all over. Brother, this is willing to speak, it's really boring. With that said, Sun Mang threw half of the young cultivator who had just killed, directly beside the cultivator who had just woken up. It made him scream. With this courage, you dare to attack us. Sun Mang sneered, the weak will always be the weak, even if they embark on the path of cultivation. In the face of Sun Mang's ridicule, the middle-aged cultivator, who had been so frightened, didn't care at all, just lowered his head and trembled. But seeing the half-body of his companion on the ground, and the pool of blood and internal organs flowing out, his whole body trembled even more. Ask you a question, as long as you are willing to answer, I will let you go half an hour. The middle-aged cultivator gathered his courage and said with a trembling voice, how do I know what you said, is it true or false? You can only choose to believe, or die. Sun Mang rubbed his sharp nails as black as ink and said. The middle-aged monk struggled violently in his heart. After a long time, he nodded. I ask you, where did you Guang'an house cultivators get the logistical medicine pill supply? Haven't the Zhao family already died? Could it be the medicine pill provided to you by other prefectures? Hear this. The middle-aged monk lowered his head, unwilling to answer. What? The next second, one of his legs was torn off alive, and he screamed in pain. Uninterested. Sun Mang shook his head, wanting to kill him directly. But the middle-aged cultivator's strong desire to survive exploded. He collapsed on the ground and shouted loudly, I said. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Sun Mang's outstretched claws stopped, speak. It's the Qin family on Shuanghu Island, and most of the medicinal pills on our front line are provided by the Qin family. Qin family? Sun Mang was a little confused, so he had never heard of the name of the Qin family in Guang'an Prefecture before his death. You are lying to me. I didn't lie to you. Really, the Qin family is a new big family in Guang'an Prefecture. By the way, their family also gave birth to a young swordsman named Qin Daoxian. Once the psychological defense line of the middle-aged monk was opened, he immediately shook out all the words. Is it this person? On the side, Sun Fu brought a bronze-colored round mirror, and inside it appeared a young monk in a white Taoist robe. Yes, it's him. The middle-aged monk endured the pain. Brother, it's him. When Sun Mang learned that the Qin family was actually the family of Qin Daoxian who played him last time, the old and new hatreds were added together, and the whole person broke out uncontrollably. It's the little last time. Done. A palm waved towards the middle-aged monk. Before the middle-aged monk could beg for mercy, he was photographed into a mass of flesh and blood. Sticking out his scarlet tongue and licking the blood stains on his palm, Sun Mang said slowly, Brother, what should we do now? Sun Fu's dark golden eyes shrank, and he said gloomily, Zhou Mubai is besieging us now, but he has left a gap just so that we can fight with the Yi family. Since that's the case, I will fulfill his wish. Brother, this. Sun Fu took out an amber jade bottle, which contained a small half-bottle of golden blood, and muttered, Our immortal blood, not much. Heard. Sun Mang was completely silent. After a long while, he raised his head and said firmly, Brother, what do you say, what do I do? Brothers. Sun Fu patted Sun Mang on the shoulder and said. More than a whole month. With the efforts of more than 20 monks of the Blessing generation, as well as Qin Daoxian and Qin Daochu, Shuanghu Island Industrial Zone has a new look. The biggest change is the Lingxian network that spreads across the two large factories. If you look closely, you will find at the other end of the spiritual line network extends all the way to the spiritual lake of the third-order spiritual veins on Shuanghu Island. In Linghu, a super-large spiritual pressure device is slowly operating, delivering spiritual energy to various industrial equipment in the entire Shuanghu Island Industrial Zone. Standing in the sky, Qin Daoxian looked down at the spiritual line network under his feet, and his heart was full of excitement. With the efforts of him and the Qin family, Shuanghu Island is changing little by little, and the industrial flower of Xiaoxianji is blooming little by little on this small island. Energy is the foundation of industry. The energy Qin Daoxian chose for this industry is the seemingly inexhaustible spiritual energy. After solving the problem of energy and power, the next thing to do is to innovate technology, continue to improve productivity, and expand production capacity. as well as inventing machines for the industrialized production of high-level magical implements and high-level elixir. This requires the Institute of Magical Instruments to innovate and create on the basis of existing instruments. Compared with low-level instruments and medicinal herbs, high-level magic tools and medicinal herbs are much more difficult to refine, and it is far less easy to continue to rely on semi-manual and semi-machined industrial production. Chen Daoxian knew this in his heart. But this problem, he is no longer ready to solve it by himself. After all, he has already planted the seeds of industry, and he has even combined the industrial thinking of the previous life and the knowledge of tool refining in this life into a book dedicated to teaching the disciples of the Chen family. He also ordered Chen Daochu to set up the Institute of Magical Instruments. After doing so much work, if they depended on him for everything, then the Chen family would be too useless. In the past, it could be said that the children of the Chen family were not talented enough, but now they have the blessing of the preaching function of the Hongmeng enlightenment of Taoism. There is no need for Chen Daoxian to bother anymore. At this time, the Chen family has been given wings to take off by Chen Daoxian. As long as it is given enough time, the energy it bursts will definitely shock the world. Young patriarch, it's really spectacular. Yes. Chen Daoxian nodded with a smile, just about to say something. Suddenly raised his head and looked in the direction of Sequoia Island. What's up? Chen Daochu wondered. It's nothing, I'm going out, you guys keep busy. Okay. After greeting, Chen Daoxian flew directly towards the Fourth Order Mountain Protection Formation. As the movement of the Shuanghu Island Industrial Zone became more and more loud, Chen Daoxian wanted to protect the secrets of the industrial zone on the island. The entire Shuanghu Island has long been shrouded in a Fourth-Order Mountain Protection Formation and a Third-Order Maze. Seen from the outside, everything on Shuanghu Island is shrouded in a vast white fog, and if you don't enter it, you can't see any reality at all. Out of the big line, Chen Daoxian frowned when he saw Lei Zhen, who was wearing spirit armor and standing with his hands in front of him. General Lei, what happened? Lord, Lei Zhen bowed his hands. The Guang'an Prefecture Allied Forces Headquarters sent a message asking you to go to a battle meeting. Have a battle meeting? Chen Daoxian frowned. Are there any new changes in the front line of the Eastern Defense Zone? He remembered that the last time he was invited to a battle meeting, it was Zhou Mubai who encountered difficulties on the front line. The medicinal pills were consumed wildly, and the logistics could not keep up, so he had to ask for help from the rear. But over the past 3 years, the coalition forces in the East Defense Zone have been pressing the Lianhua Island Corps Group to fight, and there is no problem of asking for help. In addition, the production capacity of the Chen family's medicinal herbs has been increasing, and the supply of medicinal herbs on the front line has even been saturated. The Chen family had to convert part of their production capacity into the production of qi-gathering pills, a first-order medicinal pill that assisted cultivation. In recent years, in order to support the front line, many monks have delayed their own cultivation. There is a huge demand for medicinal herbs to assist cultivation in the rear. The Chen family's medicinal pills are very popular. Now, as far as the medicinal pill market in Guang'an Prefecture is concerned, the Chen family has completely surpassed the Zhou family and become the first medicinal family. Currently, Chenjiayu Lingdan produced nearly 1 million pills, covering more than 90% of the first-order pill market in the 3 immortal cities. If it weren't for the Chen family's limited ability to produce second-order elixir, it might have completely squeezed the market share of the Zhou family's elixir. For this scene, while the Zhou family felt helpless, there was no good way to do it. After all, the Chen family already has a foundation, and it is no longer a small family. Even if his Zhou family wanted to strike, he couldn't think of a good way for a while. Besides, the policy formulated by the Zhou family before was to befriend the Chen family. If we strike again at this time, wouldn't all the previous investment of the Zhou family be wasted? Chen Daoxian is also very knowledgeable. After occupying the first-order medicinal pill market, the second-order medicinal pill market has not been touched again. He knew that in Guang'an Prefecture, it was best not to push the Zhou family too quickly. Otherwise it's not a good thing. At least before he was promoted to the Z mansion, or before the cultivators of the Fuzi generation grew up, it was inconvenient to force the Zhou family too much. Say it again. Wan Xinghai's medicine pill market is so vast, why should he be confined to one place? The medicine pill market in Sangzhou Xiancheng, the medicine market in the neighboring city, the medicine market in Jingzhou and Taizhou, etc. Thoughts flipping. Half a day has passed. Chen Daoxian looked at the Zhou family station in front of him, and quickly lowered his escape. Just entered the hall of the Allied Forces headquarters in Guang'an Prefecture. Chen Daoxian met a good friend whom he hadn't seen in years. Chapter 192. The main hall of the Allied Forces headquarters in Guang'an Prefecture. What? After listening to Zhou Mubai's narration, everyone was shocked. Yang Linyuan frowned and said, "Didn't the Lianhua Island Corps Group be suppressed by the coalition forces in the East Defense Zone? Why did it suddenly break out?" Hearing this, Zhou Mubai said solemnly, "I guessed right before, the Corps Group of Lotus Island really has the ability to quickly promote the foundation building zombies to the Zifu." The ability to quickly promote Zifu zombies? This. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other in dismay. "Brother Zhou," Chen Daoxian bowed his hands, "what do you mean? The corpse of Lotus Island has been fighting against my Guang'an mansion for so long is a fake, but it is actually to delay time and create purple mansion-level zombies." Probably, Zhou Mubai paused, "It's not necessarily fake to attack my Guang'an mansion, it can only be said that our Guang'an mansion is indeed not their main target, their target has always been Sangzhou Xiancheng. Now the islands along the way from Lianhua Island to Sangzhou Xiancheng are almost completely destroyed within a month, and the corpse tide is approaching Sangzhou Xiancheng. So, doesn't it mean that all the islands in Sangzhou Xiancheng have fallen?" Zhou Mingyan couldn't help but said. "You can say that." Zhou Mubai nodded heavily. "It's too fast." Yang Linyuan and Chen Daoxian frowned upon hearing this. Not long ago, the east defense area of Guang'an Mansion was still fighting against the opponent, but the situation turned sharply in a blink of an eye, and no one could accept it. But, why did the other party choose Sangzhou Xiancheng? Zhang Su, the red-haired cultivator who had not spoken, wondered. "It's the population." Chen Daoxian's eyes were deep. "The population of Sangzhou Xiancheng is more than 10 times the total population of my Guang'an prefecture, and the total is as many as billions. Once such a population is transformed into zombies." Everyone shuddered when they heard the words. Although the strength of a single zombie is not worth mentioning, a monk in the early stage of qi refining can easily strangle with a flying sword. Available in the billions. Besides, there are also levels of evil things like zombies. The strength of the low-level zombies is not comparable to that of the qi refining monks, but the high-level zombies are even comparable to those of the Zifu monks. That is to say, the zombies have fewer means. Fighting alone is not the opponent of the Zifu cultivator, but what about 2 and 3? It is clear. The corpse group of Lotus Island has the means to quickly upgrade the level of zombies. Although everyone can't imagine what kind of treasure it is, it can make a nefarious thing like a zombie quickly advance. It stands to reason that although the promotion of zombies is far easier than that of monks, it is not so easy. In just a few years, a batch of cultivator corpses with at most the foundation building level were refined into Zifu-level corpse servants. This is obviously counterintuitive. If the cultivation of sinister things was really that simple, then the world of immortal cultivation would have been in chaos and demons would have been rampant. Actually, the current world of immortality. Whether it's monsters, evil spirits, or demons, they're all things that don't enter the mainstream. Needless to say, the monsters naturally have been reduced to a situation of lingering since the ancient times when they failed to compete with the human race for of the heaven and this world. As for the evil spirits and demon cultivators, their biggest enemies are not cultivators, but calamities. Once the evil spirits and demon cultivators reach the golden elixir realm of human cultivators, they will encounter thunder tribulations that are 10 times or even 100 times more terrifying than that of human cultivators. Under the attack of this thunder tribulation, no matter what kind of terrifying evil creature or demon cultivator you are, all will be turned into ashes. There is no chance of a robbery at all. Even if there is a 1 in trillion chance of successfully transcending the calamity, it will face the joint strangulation of the human race cultivators. Human cultivators are very aware of the dangers of high-level evil spirits and demon cultivators. Killing these things is the consensus of almost all ethnic monks. After all, this kind of thing is essentially 2 species that cannot coexist with human monks. The evil spirits and demons require the cultivation of the evil spirit of the Yin meridian, while the monks of the human race need spiritual energy. How can the 2 coexist? Not to mention that many magic cultivators rely on massacres of mortals, collecting mortals' resentment and blood evil spirits to speed up their cultivation and sacrificing magic tools. This perverted path of cultivation is destined to be rejected by all monks. Hear Zhou Mubai's words. For a time, everyone felt extremely heavy. The east defense zone blocked Lotus Island, but the opponent actually went straight to Cangzhou Xiancheng, and all the way was like breaking the enemy. This Yi family is too rubbish. Don't they know how to build a defense line? Zhou Mingyan couldn't help cursing. Obviously, the battle between the Lianhua Island Corpse Group and us was shown to all the monks in Cangzhou Xiancheng, in order to show the Corpse Group's vulnerable image. Otherwise, Cangzhou Xiancheng would not be so defenseless. Zhou Mubai said solemnly. Not to mention the Yi family, even the cultivators in their east defense zone, after years of fighting, could not help but start to despise the corpses on Lotus Island. After all, they strangled millions of corpses on the opposite side. But what I didn't expect was that these were played by the Corpse Group for them. This moment, everyone felt extremely troubled. But everyone knows that in any case, Cangzhou Xiancheng cannot fall. Once Cangzhou Xiancheng is broken, there will be no line of defense in the entire Cangzhou Xiancheng that can resist the corpse. At that time, the mortals in the entire Cangzhou Xiancheng will be transformed into zombies, and then sweep the entire Cangzhou. Not to mention the mere Guang'an prefecture, the 14 other Cangzhou prefectures combined would not be able to withstand this disaster. Heard. Yang Linyuan couldn't help but said, "It's all this time, hasn't Qianyuan Jianzong made a move? What are they waiting for? For the sake of a mere genius, all the mortals in Cangzhou must be sacrificed." Zhou Mingho shook his head solemnly. God Zhu is not eliminated, even if this corpse tide is suppressed, it will not make any sense. Zhou Mingho said solemnly, if he can create a Cangzhou corpse once, he can create a Jingzhou corpse, and even Taizhou corpse. Qin Daoxian was also in a heavy mood at the moment. He knew that Zhou Mingho was right. If the gods do not get rid of the real people, the corpses will never be destroyed. This is the real bane. What's more, Qin Daoxian always felt that there was something behind the Cangzhou corpse chaos. For some reason, he suddenly thought of the words Xia Hong said before his death, "You all die." What kind of disaster, let him say that you are all going to die. Take 1,000 steps back. Even if Cangzhou fell collectively, they, the Cangzhou clan, would slap their butts and run to other states, and the corpse group could overturn the entire Wangxinghai. Totally overthinking. You must know that so far, only the cultivators of Guang'an House have fought against the corpse group on Lotus Island. Other Cangzhou prefectures did not participate. If it weren't for the sudden turn of events this time, the monks in other houses would not necessarily know that such a big mess had happened in Cangzhou. Just like the monks in Guang'an Mansion didn't know what happened in the Jinan Mansion next door. This world is far wider than the previous life. The delivery of the message also lags behind the previous life. It is not a major event that shakes Cangzhou, and ordinary monks rarely pay attention to foreign affairs. But it's different now. Once Cangzhou Xiancheng is besieged, all the palaces in Sangzhou will receive this news. If nothing else, someone will soon contact the Zhou family in Guang'an Prefecture. This person is either a cultivator of the Yi family, or a cultivator of a big family from another house. This combat meeting was not so much a meeting. It is better to say that everyone has reached a consensus again, to help Sangzhou Xiancheng. Although from the bottom of their hearts, everyone didn't want to help Sangzhou Xiancheng, and they wished that the Yi family would die. But I don't want the dead Yi family to turn into zombies and attack them again. Because compared to the Yi family, those corpses are the most terrifying things. They are not afraid, they will not compromise, they will only fight with the monks. This is a war with no way out. Since everyone agrees to help Sangzhou Xiancheng, then we will launch an alliance to unite the entire Sangzhou cultivator. Zhou Mingho suddenly stood up. Hearing this, everyone nodded, stood up and said, "Subordinates obey." Sangzhou Xiancheng has a population of hundreds of millions and is the largest xiancheng in the entire Sangzhou. Fortunately, it is also the home of the Yi family. With the strength of the Yi family, this immortal city will not fall easily. Anyway, the Yi family also has Yi Wudao, the Jindan cultivator, and more than a dozen cultivators from the Purple House. There is also a fifth-order formation that guards the entire immortal city. Even though the Yi family couldn't compare to the corpse group in terms of battle strength of the Purple Mansion, they could completely stand guard and wait for the rescue of other provinces. After the meeting, before waiting for Zhou Mingho to contact other provinces, someone kept contacting the Zhou family. As expected by Chen Daoxian, among these people, there are people from the Yi family, as well as people from other great clans in various prefectures. Everyone has only one goal: suppress the Sangzhou corpse chaos. At this moment, all the monks in the entire Sangzhou knew that Sangzhou Xiancheng must not be allowed to fall. As for Zhou Mubai's previous thought of revenge against the Yi family, he had also forgotten about it before the safety of the entire Guang'an mansion and Sangzhou. Sangzhou's safety is more important than everything else. All grudges can and must be put aside temporarily. Chen Daoxian is the same. He knows better than anyone the simple truth that An has finished eggs under the nest. Since the Qin family is rooted in Guang'an Prefecture and Sangzhou, the safety of Sangzhou is the safety of the Qin family. As for fleeing, not to mention whether Qianyuan Jianzong will be held accountable. Even if Chen Daoxian can escape with his clan, there is no state capital in the entire Wangxinghai that is willing to take in this kind of abandoned soil and escape as a coward. Twin Lakes Island. Chen Daoxian's escape light quickly landed. Back to a peaceful family land. Chen Daoxian walked silently in the direction of the clan. Chongping No. 1 Xiuxian Primary School. Chen Daoxian silently glanced at the blue stone, several bright red stone carvings, and walked into the campus with his legs raised. In the current clan, compared with 3 years ago, the number of people in the Fuzi generation has doubled, reaching more than 200 people. Chapter 193. Wait for a long time, after class. Chen Xianhe looked at Chen Daoxian, who was silent, and asked, "Is there something on your mind?" Hearing this, Chen Daoxian smiled and shook his head. "Then come with me." "Okay." Chen Daoxian nodded. Chen Xianhe immediately used the wind control technique, rolled up Chen Daoxian, and flew him in the direction of Qitong Mountain. Along the way, Chen Xianhe did not speak, and Chen Daoxian also remained silent. About half an hour. The red copper mountain is already in sight. Remember, the first time I brought you here? Remember. Looking at the direction of Chen Ziyan's finger, a cave dwelling stood on the top of the blue mountain. That cave is the cave where Chen Xianhe has lived for decades. Over the years, Chen Xianhe has lived there, silently guarding the Chen family. To this day, Chen Xianhe occasionally comes to this cave to clean up. The two flew very fast. In a blink, it crossed Chen Ziyan's cave. That's the fire room. I remember when I brought you here for the first time, you were only so tall. Chen Xianhe made a gesture to his waist. At that time, I also passed the family's refining tool to you with the idea of giving it a try. Unexpectedly, your crafting talent is so amazing that you have led the family step by step to where it is today. Chen Xianhe spoke quietly. Qin Daoxian listened silently. That is Copper Mountain. In the end, Qin Xianhe pointed to a bare mountain top, a little sighed. Everything in my Qin family starts from this spiritual mine. Uncle 13. Dao Xian, Qin Xianhe looked at him. I tell you this because I want to tell you that no matter what the future of the family is in the future, I will not blame you, nor will the clansmen blame you. Because, you have already done everything for your family. Dao Xian, you are worthy of any clan. Qin Xianhe patted Qin Daoxian on the shoulder and said seriously. Qin Daoxian smiled and nodded. Qin Xianhe didn't ask Qin Daoxuan's thoughts, and Qin Daoxian didn't say anything. Limited by the cultivation base, many things are said, except to add guilt and trouble to Qin Xianhe too, without any use. In fact, Qin Xian's remarks have given Qin Daoxian great encouragement. At the very least, at Qin Xianhe, he knew the attitude of the clansmen towards him, the young patriarch, and the clansmen's support for him. That's enough. No one is stupid and no one is blind. The contribution Qin Daoxian has made to the Qin family is less than 1% of the patriarchs of all dynasties combined. This is obvious to all the Qin clan. After sending Qin Xianhe back to the clan school, Qin Daoxian found Qin Fusheng. Seeing this half-year-old boy who was less than 10 years old and had just reached his chest, Qin Daoxuan's face showed a look of surprise. Fusheng, you. Young patriarch, I succeeded. Qin Fusheng smiled. Sword intent. Qin Fusheng understood the sword intent. Not only that, but he also entered the realm of the 9th level of qi refining. This completely broke the record set by Qin Daoxian. He became the youngest cultivator ever to realize the sword intent. Perhaps it is easy to use resources to smash a 9th level qi refining cultivator who is less than 10 years old, but no matter how much resources are used, it is impossible to smash a monster who understands the sword intent at the age of 9. Seeing him, Qin Daoxian seemed to see another top powerhouse rising up in the Qin family. Fusheng, great. Qin Daoxian patted Qin Fusheng's shoulder heavily. Qin Fusheng was very excited to receive such affirmation from Qin Daoxian. Excited, Qin Daoxian handed over a flying sword. This is a 3rd-order high-grade earth attribute flying sword that I refined for you. It was originally intended to be given to you as a gift after you build your foundation. Now, I will give it to you in advance. With that said, Qin Daoxian handed over the flying sword worth millions of spirit stones. This flying sword is the proud work of Qin Daoxian after he was promoted to the 3rd-order refiner. It is also the best flying sword he has refined so far. It is higher than the rank of his 2 3rd-rank middle-rank natal flying swords. Taking the flying sword handed over by Qin Daoxian, Qin Fusheng was even more excited, but then hesitantly said, however, the rank of this flying sword is too high, so I can't use it. Of course you can't use it now, but you'll be able to use it almost after you have successfully established the foundation. Having said that, Qin Daoxian told him the terrifying increase after comprehending the sword intent foundation during the qi refining period. This explosive strength improvement was Qin Daoxuan's personal experience. Perhaps Qin Fusheng will not be as terrifying as Qin Daoxuan's promotion in spiritual consciousness, but in swordsmanship, he will definitely have a qualitative leap like Qin Daoxian did back then. If he is lucky enough, maybe Qin Fusheng will be able to touch the 2nd tangible realm of sword intent as soon as he builds the foundation as he did back then. Until then, Qin Fusheng's strength is not comparable to that of the cultivator of the Purple Mansion, but he is definitely an invincible existence under the Purple Mansion. The Qin family finally had a 2nd pillar besides Qin Daoxian. Although, the age of this pillar is a bit young. Fusheng. From today, you have to protect the Qin family, especially when I'm not in the family. Don't worry, young patriarch. Chen Fusheng nodded heavily. 10 days later. The fairy city of Guang'an Prefecture. Spirit boats gathered from all over Cangzhou towards Guang'an Mansion. Chen Daoxian led the coalition forces in the Western Defense Zone, with a total of 500 Foundation establishment cultivators and 5 Spirit Void battleships, rushing over. The outer city of Guang'an, the city where the Zhou family lived. Countless Zhou clan members raised their heads and looked at the scene in front of them that they had never seen in their entire lives. Daddy, there are so many big ships. I'm going to tell my mother. All the Zhou clan members trembled when they saw the immortal boat above their heads. If it wasn't for the immortal master to greet him in time, it is estimated that these mortals of the Zhou clan would all be on their knees and kowtow. For mortals, the monks are the existence they can't reach. This is also one of the reasons why the Zhou family has banned air formations in Guang'an to avoid disturbing mortals. Think about it. If the air formation is not banned, hundreds of thousands of cultivators will fly around the heads of mortals every day. What will be the impact? If mortals are used to it, it will also cause the monks' deterrence to mortals to decrease. Simply, the Zhou family came up with a no-air formation, everyone would save trouble. On the deck of the Spirit Void battleship, Chen Daoxian stood in the middle, with Lei Zhen and Zhou Muqing standing beside him. Zhou Mubai. I was looking around at the spirit boats from Beppu, and a voice resounded through the sky. Who is this man? Do not know. It's the fire spirit Taoist of Shun House. Is it him? Daoist Hualing, who single-handedly destroyed hundreds of foundation building cultivators in Yunmeng Pass. Yes, it's him. Moreover, he was only in the late stage of foundation building at that time, and he never imagined that he is now on the 3rd floor of the Purple Mansion. Lei Zhen looked envious. In terms of Ling Zhen, he is the same as Daoist Hualing, both of them are cultivators of Tianlingen. It stands to reason that Lei Zhen was also a foundation building cultivation base back then, and the gap between the two is not so big. But Daoist Hualing was a family cultivator, with the full support of the family behind him, but Lei Zhen was a loose cultivator, and he was the kind of loose cultivator who had not become a guest of a big family. In addition, he did not continue to hang out on the battlefield of Izumo. Naturally, in terms of resources, he couldn't compare with the core children of a big family such as Daoist Hualing, and the difference between the two was the worse. Heard. Chen Daoxian looked over curiously. Is there anything special about this fire spirit Taoist? How dare you call Brother Zhou's name in the immortal city of Guang'an Prefecture? It's you, kid. Why, itchy skin again. The next moment, another voice sounded in the sky, and a white figure stood proudly in the sky. Not Zhou Mubai. Who was it? Daoist Hualing looked young, in his early 20s, with a fair complexion and a red mark like a fire pattern on his forehead. He was dressed in a loose red Taoist robe, and his long hair was casually tied behind his head, giving him a bohemian look. Hey. Hearing Zhou Mubai's words, Taoist Hualing laughed. Afterwards, the two embraced each other in public, then smashed each other's chest hard, and smiled at each other. This scene not only surprised others, but also shattered Chen Daoxian's 3 views. In his eyes, Zhou Mubai should be a very serious and steady person, but he didn't expect to make such a frivolous action in public. Chapter 194. Shizi. The main hall of the Allied Forces headquarters in Guang'an Prefecture. A shocking roar came from the hall. How can he? How dare? Abandon the city and flee. Inside the hall, Zhou Mingho, the patriarch of the Zhou family who has always been suave and mild-tempered, was furious at this moment, and his eyes were red. Although the Cangzhou coalition was hastily formed this time, there were more than 10 large clans who came. Although few of these big families were comparable to the Zhou family in Guang'an, most of them were also much stronger than the Yang family in Guang'an, the second largest family in Guang'an. All of them are the most powerful clans in each province. Otherwise, you will not be able to represent your hometown to participate in this meeting. Among the dozen or so families, the three most powerful are the Zhou family in Guang'an, the Zhao family in Shuan, and the Zhang family in Jinan. The gap between these three major families, whether it is the number of monks or high-level monks, is not too big. Even their respective core disciples are outstanding. For example, Daoist Hualing from the Zhao family in Shuan House, and Henry Zhang from the Zhang family in Jinan House, are all famous people on the list of Tianjiao in the Zifu House of Wang Xinghai. Wan Xinghai's Zifu Tianjiao list. It is a list based on the record and potential of the cultivators of the Purple Mansion in Wang Xinghai. The specific ranking of the list is not announced to the outside world. But the monks on the list all know their specific ranking on the Zifu Tianjiao list. Relatively speaking, the three lists produced by Qianyuan Jianzong are still very credible. Unless there is a Zifu cultivator who deliberately hides his strength, the Zifu cultivator on this list is probably the strongest group of Zifu cultivators in Wan Xinghai. After all, Wan Xinghai and Izumo have fought a war for hundreds of years. Which cultivator of Zifu has never been on the battlefield and can hide his clumsiness on the battlefield? Few people can do it. Because the fighting style on the battlefield is different from that in normal times, there is rarely a situation of equal power. If you don't want to die, you can only go all out and let yourself live as much as possible on the battlefield. Zhou Mubai's original ranking on the Zifu Tianjiao ranking was out of the top 100, but after this wave of corpses on Lotus Island, his ranking went straight to the top 10. Currently ranked 9th. In other words, among the cultivators in the Purple Mansion in the entire Wan Xinghai, Zhou Mubai's strength can be ranked 9th. You must know that he is only on the 4th floor of the Purple Mansion. If he waited until he reached the 9th floor of Zifu, wouldn't he be able to touch the top 3 or even the first position on the Zifu Tianjiao list? This shows that Zhou Mubai's strength is strong. Chen Daoxian has been comparing his own strength with him and found that there is still a big gap with him. In fact, it is not that Chen Daoxian is too weak, but that Zhou Mubai is too strong. Zhou Mubai, who was on the 4th floor of the Purple Mansion, was now fully qualified to fight against the weak Jindan early-stage cultivator. Inside the hall, the cultivators sent by all ethnic groups to participate in this meeting were all angry when they heard the news. Zhou Mingho's roar aroused the deepest pain in everyone's heart. Then, Yi Wudao, the ancestor of the Yi family, abandoned Jinan Pass and fled, causing Jinan Pass to fall. Now Cangzhou Xiancheng is besieged, and everyone is still thinking about helping Cangzhou, but Yi Wudao ran away again. You know, Cangzhou Xiancheng is different from Zenangwan. This is Yi Wudao's own clan. In the eyes of Yi Wudao, a selfish beast who is greedy for life and fears death, his own dog's life is the most important thing. It is not surprising that he can do this. As soon as Zhou Mingho's roar stopped, Henry Zhang of Jinan Mansion said coldly. Chen Daoxian looked at the young monk in front of him when he heard the sound. Standing in the hall, this person made no secret of his cultivation. His cultivation was even higher than that of Zhou Mubai, reaching the 5th floor of the Purple Mansion. Dressed in white clothes, carrying a long sword with a gleaming azure light on his back, his eyes were extremely sharp, and he faintly exuded a compelling cold light. In Henry Zhang's words, he did not take Yi Wudao, the Jindan cultivator, in his eyes at all, calling him a beast. Who knows that people hear this? No one dared to speak up, and Yi Wudao was easy to say, but behind Yi Wudao stood the third elder of Qianyuan Jianzong, a great monk in the late nascent soul. Henry Zhang scolded Yi Wudao as a beast, then the third elder of Qianyuan Jianzong was not an old beast, which made everyone present dare to answer. Glancing at the silent crowd, Henry Zhang sneered and let out an obvious sneer. Dao Yu Zhang said it well. Zhou Mubai stood up and scolded, 50 years ago, Yi Wudao abandoned Zanangguan and fled, so that my Cangzhou cultivator lost more than 1 million people. This time, he abandoned Cangzhou Xiancheng and fled, thus putting hundreds of millions of mortals and monks in danger. Such cowards who are greedy for life and fear of death, saying that he is a beast, are all flattering him. Good. Daoist Hualing also stood up and scolded. At this time, everyone remembered the old and new hatred against Yi Wudao, the ancestor of the Yi family, and they followed behind the three and condemned. Chen Daoxian stood in the crowd, frowning silently. Yi Wudao ran away. Is this greed for life and fear of death, or something else? Of course, no matter what, Cangzhou Xiancheng must not fall, otherwise, the next person who suffers will be everyone in Cangzhou. Everyone. Zhou Mingho said loudly, although Yi Wudao is shameless, Cangzhou Xiancheng must be saved, because this is not only to save Cangzhou Xiancheng, but also to save ourselves. Patriarch Zhou. In the crowd, Henry Zhang bowed his hands. There are so many corpses, I wonder if there is a good plan. Hearing this, Zhou Mingho shook his head and said solemnly, there is no good plan, only a deadly fight. This. Everyone couldn't help looking at each other. Only fight to the death. This sentence made everyone feel extremely heavy. But think of the terrifying number of corpse tides, and as many as 100 Zifu-level corpse servants. No one could think of any conspiracy to solve this disaster. From Lianhua Island to Cangzhou Xiancheng, it is at least 100,000 miles along the way. With such a long distance, coupled with the inaction of the Yi family, how many islands and how many mortal monks were poisoned by corpses? Everyone just thinks about this. Simply shudder. It is roughly estimated that there are at least hundreds of millions of human races from Lianhua Island to Cangzhou Xiancheng. So many people, even if only half of the island falls, will cause a disaster. This disaster, compared to the chaos of the gods of the past, was even worse. After all, the chaos of divine judgment is just a war between monks. Although this kind of war has a very wide range, the monks will not slaughter mortals for no reason. Even if the cultivators of the other side were killed, mortals would generally only be reduced to slaves and would not be slaughtered. This rule was established after Qianyuan Jianzong unified Wanxinghai. Even when it comes to dealing with the mortals of the Izumo kingdom, Qianyuan Jianzong also adopted this policy. Not wanton slaughtering mortals is the bottom line of Qianyuan Jianzong. This is also the foundation on which Qianyuan Jianzong's rule in Wanxinghai has always been very stable. If Qianyuan Jianzong is really cruel, but all those who oppose it will be slaughtered, and even the mortals of the opponent's forces will not be left, it will not have the prestige it has now. The formation of the Cangzhou alliance was extremely fast. Under the unified coordination of the Zhou family. The Cangzhou alliance is dominated by 3 major families, with 21 families participating. The cultivators participating in this battle are all the most elite cultivators of all ethnic groups, and there is not even a cultivator in the late stage of qi refining, all of them are cultivators above the foundation establishment stage. No way, the soldiers are very fast. Their spirit boats could not carry a large number of qi refining cultivators. In addition, the main goal of the Cangzhou alliance is to eliminate the high-level zombies in the corpse group. Once the high-level zombies are completely killed, those low-level zombies are headless flies, and the remaining work is to slowly clean up these flies. Therefore, the Cangzhou alliance did not bring a qi refining cultivator. This is different from the Izumo frontier. The most important reason why the Izumo country frontline recruited so many late-stage qi refining cultivators was not because of the combat power of the late-stage qi refining cultivators. It was the Qianyuan sword sect that wanted Wan Xinghai's qi refining period to have a good way out. How many high-level loose cultivators, even Yuaning Jinjuan loose cultivators, rely on the accumulation of military exploits on the front line of Izumo Kingdom in exchange for resources, and step by step to reach their current position? Millions of miles away. A huge island like a small Xianzhou, located in the center of Wanxinghai. On the periphery of this small immortal continent, there are many islands. Looking closely, each island is an independent cave. Countless caves have constructed a perfect defensive formation outside this small immortal continent. Except for the highest level of Qianyuan sword sect, no one knows what the level of this formation has reached. Anyway, with Qin Deoxuan's formation level comparable to that of the Fourth Order Formation Master, if you stand here, you will not be able to judge the rank of this big formation. He usually arranges a formation, which at most covers an island and an immortal city. There is nothing like this. The secret realms of the caves are completely different from the main world. On the periphery of the main island of Qianyuan Jianzong, a huge and unimaginable battle has been constructed. This is where the Qianyuan sword sect resides. Enter this small fairyland. It will be found that this small fairyland is not small at all, and even more than 10 times larger than the area seen by the outside world. Cave Heaven's Secret Realm. This small immortal continent is also a huge cave. The Qianyuan sword sect has been inherited from the Mahayana true immortal, and with the accumulation of so many generations, its power has already expanded to a point that is unimaginable to outsiders. Although thousands of years ago, Qianyuan Jianzong was driven from Xianyunzhu to Wangxinghai by Xianqing Taoist League. But I didn't expect that Qianyuan Jianzong not only did not decline, but took advantage of Wan Xinghai's resources to take off again. As a result, Qianyuan Jianzong now brings all the forces of the entire Wangxinghai to coerce out of the Cloud Country and approach the hinterland of the Xianqing Dao League. Within the main cave, in a fairy palace, a group of powerful monks sat high on the thrones. These powerful monks are the highest level of Qianyuan Jianzong. Among them, the 3 elders of Qianyuan Jianzong are impressively listed. Have you heard about Sangzhou? A gentle voice sounded in the hall. When everyone heard the words, their expressions were different. Some looked solemn, some frowned, and some mocked. Sect Master, the corpse chaos in Sangzhou is sweeping, we can't wait any longer. An old man with silver hair and a childish face spoke up. Another elder shook his head and retorted, it is not difficult to suppress the corpse chaos, but it is difficult to remove the curse of Shinjuezhenren. He paused. In the end, Shinjuezhenren is just a disease of scabies. I'm afraid he knows about the new channel that my Qianyuan Jianzong discovered in the Wangxinghai underwater world. Elder Wu is right. Another elder nodded, if you want to stop Shinjuezhen from continuing the chaos, you only need to send a Yuanying Zhenjuan to be stationed in Sangzhou, but it is difficult to prevent him from revealing the secrets of Wangxinghai's underwater world. Outside world. That's true. Yes. Everyone nodded. The sect master of Qianyuan sword sect, sitting in the most central position, was shrouded in a cloud of clouds, and outsiders couldn't see her face at all. She could only vaguely see her slender figure. At the position where she started, a young man dressed in white with an impatient look on his face leaned on the throne. After careful observation, I found that he was wandering in the sky. Third elder, what do you think? The sect master of Qianyuan sword sect looked at the indifferent third elder, Yi Yin. As a great monk in the late Yuanying period, Yi Yin's cultivation level ranked among the top 5 even in the entire Qianyuan Jianzong. Although his strength is not comparable to those of the Zhenhai Palace Hall Master and Qianyuan Sword Sect Master. But among the elders, he is the strongest. The elder faction of Qianyuan Jianzong has always been headed by him, and Yi Yin's seniority is the same as the previous Qianyuan Jianzong Sect Master, so he has a great influence in the sect. Second only to the current Qianyuan Jianzong suzerain. If it wasn't for his son Yi Wudao who abandoned Zenangwen and fled 50 years ago, he had a very bad influence within the Qianyuan sword sect, and Yi Yin's influence could even be comparable to that of the Qianyuan sword sect master. Yi Yin is dressed in a loose lavender robe with long sleeves hanging on the ground. Although he is the elder of the Qianyuan sword sect master, his face is very young. If he hadn't seen his deep eyes that were completely different from the young face, you will definitely think that this person is a young Taoist, not a true monarch nascent soul who is over 2,000 years old. The third elder, Yi Yin, cupped his hands and said indifferently, "This matter. Not finished." Outside Asgard, a young monk flew in quickly. Feeling the terrifying pressure in the immortal palace, the young cultivator immediately knelt down, bowed his head and said, reporting to the sect master, "Yi Wudao, the ancestor of the Yi family in Sangzhou, came to the sect for help." This. Yi Wudao came to ask for help. Hasn't he been banned for 100 years? Whether it is asking for help or taking refuge, who knows? After all, this is not the first time for him, and he is very familiar. Seeing this cultivator, the original listless Jinhai Palace master suddenly regained his spirits and said with a big laugh, "Quick, let Yi Wudao come in." To shut up. The young master of Jinhai Palace was not even excited when he heard a reprimand from his senior sister from the Sea of Knowledge. "Sect master, everyone." Yi Yin stood up from the throne. The old man remembered that there was still a pot of spiritual elixir to finish, so he retired first. The old man happens to have a pot of medicinal herbs that has not been finished, so he will retire first. Old man. Not long after Yi Yin proposed to retire, all the elders stood up and handed over to the sect master of Qianyuan Sword Sect to retire. "Elders, please." Qianyuan Jianzong's gentle voice of approval sounded in the fairy palace. Soon. Immediately, more than 1/3 of the figure in Asgard disappeared. Seeing Yi Yin's eyes, Yi Wudao didn't dare to argue any more. He hurriedly bowed, and said embarrassingly, "Father, the boy retire." Watching Yi Wudao slowly retreat, Yi Yin raised his head, looked at Lu Yun outside Asgard, and murmured, "Child, don't blame me." Wangxinghai, Southwest Sea. In the sky. One after another, the spirit boats flew from the direction of the immortal city of Guang'an to the immortal city of Cangzhou. These spirit boats are the coalition forces formed by the major families in Cangzhou. On a spirit void battleship, Chen Daoxian stood side by side with Zhou Mubai, Henry Zhang, and Taoist Hualing, brother Zhou. "Do you mean that Sangzhou Xiancheng and Yi Wudao are just bait laid by Qianyuan Jianzong?" "Right." Zhou Mubai nodded. "The corpse tied on Lotus Island has been going on for so long, and I haven't heard any news from the immortal Shinjue. It can be seen that the goal of the immortal Shinjue is definitely not my Guang'an prefecture, but the entire Cangzhou." He paused. "If you want to take the entire Cangzhou, you must capture Cangzhou Xiancheng, the largest fairy city in Cangzhou, heard?" Chen Daoxian frowned and said, "What if the real Shinjue didn't make a move? Call." Zhou Mubai breathed a sigh of relief, and said in deep thought, "No, he will shoot." "Brother Zhou, why are you so sure?" "Because this Cangzhou corpse riot is not a single riot, but a premeditated act." Before Zhou Mubai could speak, Zhang Xianling on the side said, "I just received a message that Yun Mengwen was violently attacked by the Xianqing Dao League. There are also signs that a large number of Xianqing Dao League troops are active in Qishui Xiancheng." "What do you mean, the inside and the outside should be combined?" Chen Daoxian couldn't help thinking of Xia Hong who committed suicide in front of him, and a line in his heart gradually became clear. He said solemnly, "Shenju Zhenren took refuge in the Xianqing Dao League?" "It's not about taking refuge," Zhou Mubai shook his head. "Shenju Zhenren kind of person will not rely on anyone. To be precise, they should use each other. Shenju Zhenren needs Xianqing Daomeng to relieve his pressure. Xianqing Daomeng also needs him to give Qianyuan Sword Zone creates chaos." This. Chen Daoxian was quite puzzled. It should be difficult to do it just by relying on a real person, right? Although I don't know how strong the Qianyuan Sword Sect is, but the situation has developed so far that Qianyuan Sword Sect has not even sent a nascent soul true monarch. It can be seen that in the eyes of the other party, suppressing the corpse chaos is not worth mentioning. It's hard to do. Zhou Mubai also frowned and said very puzzled, "Perhaps, Shinju Zhenren has some trump cards that we don't know about." Hear this. Everyone's mood became heavier. Now, Zhangzhou Xianqing is a chess piece, and their Zhangzhou coalition is also a chess piece. On the chessboard, the flag-bearers who really played chess were Qianyuan Jianzong and Xianqing Daomen, and even Shinjue Zhenren was just a slightly stronger piece. Of course. With the character of Shinjue Zhen, he is definitely not willing to be a chess piece. He must have some way of breaking the game that everyone does not know. Just don't know. Whether it is Qianyuan Jianzong's chess higher move, or Shinjue a real person is even better. Facing this scene, although Chen Daoxian was unwilling, he knew it. Whether in front of Qianyuan Jianzong, Xianqing Dao League, or even Shinjue Zhenren, he, including his family, are all weak and have no qualifications to bargain at all. Strength is the bargaining chip in chess. He and the Chen family have no such chips, and can only act as pawns for others to play chess. Yi Wudao has a biological father who has a cultivation base of nascent soul. The major families of his Zhangzhou alliance do not have such a background, which can save them from this difficulty. Say it again. The real people of Shinjue came to Zhangzhou. As a local family in Zhangzhou, they did not do anything at the moment, so who were they waiting for? See, the atmosphere is a little dull. Zhou Mubai smiled and waved his hand. Forget it, let's not talk about these unhappy people. No matter what, Zhangzhou Xianqing must be rescued, and the corpse tide must be eliminated. What Brother Zhou said is very true. Daoist Hualing nodded. Since we don't talk about this, why not talk about Kendo? Very good. Hearing Henry Zhang talking about Kendo, Zhou Mubai and Chen Daoxian both lit up. As sword cultivators, if you ask them what topics they are most interested in, then Kendo will definitely come first. It is the dream of every sword cultivator to be able to talk about the understanding of Kendo with fellow swordsmen who are close to the cultivation level, and the realm of Kendo is different. However, no matter in Wan Xinghai or Xianyun continent, the number of sword cultivators is very rare. Not to mention the fact that two sword cultivators whose cultivation bases and Kendo realms are almost the same are gathered together. If it weren't for the Zhangzhou Corp's chaos. Zhou Mubai also rarely had the opportunity to sit with Henry Zhang and talk about Kendo. Hearing that Zhou Mubai, Zhang Xianling, and Chen Daoxian were going to talk about Kendo, Taoist Hualing immediately showed a look of helplessness. Chapter 196. Although the strength of Daoist Hualing is far beyond that of monks of the same rank, he is not a sword cultivator. Hearing the three of them talking about Kendo, it was a bit boring. Because, he doesn't understand. In other words, even if he understands it, he can't do it. His Kendo level is too far behind the three of them. After all, he couldn't even comprehend the sword intent. You talk, I'll go back first. Daoist Hualing shook his head. After all, the escape light flew towards the other spirit boat together. The three of them laughed when they saw this. Just laugh. Zhou Mubai nodded and said, if that's the case, I'll start to show my ugliness. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian and Henry Zhang cupped their hands and made a gesture of please. The sword intent I cultivated is a branch of the Jingxing sword intent in the 5 elements sword intent. It is called Gengjin sword intent. This sword intent is unparalleled in its sharpness. Zhou Mubai explained his swordsmanship to the two. Chen Daoxian and Henry Zhang listened, frowning from time to time because of confusion, and rejoiced at the sudden opening. Since my Gengjin sword intent has reached the second tangible state, I created this Qinglian sword art by myself. Let's see. Zhou Mubai stretched out his right palm and saw a cyan lotus flower budding in his palm. Suddenly, the cyan lotus bloomed in Zhou Mubai's palm, 1 petal, 2 petals, until the 3rd petal opened, and the petals of the cyan lotus became nothing. My Gengjin sword intent is still not comprehensible enough to make this green lotus flower open with 3 petals. Otherwise, the power of this sword art will at least double. Speaking of this, Zhou Gol shook his head regretfully. Brother Zhou is humble. Aside. When Henry Zhang heard this, he sighed, in the realm of sword intent double tangible, you can create your own sword tricks. Brother Zhou's talent in swordsmanship is so high that it really makes me wait for sword repairers to be ashamed. He stretched out his right palm and said, the sword intent that I cultivate is called Extreme Cold Sword Intent, and it is a branch of the Water Xing Sword Intent in the 5 Elements Sword Intent. As he spoke, a flame of ice condensed in his palm. This icy flame is icy blue. Although the cold air is restrained, Chen Daoxian can still feel a frightening power of extreme cold on it. Unfortunately, although my sword intent has advanced to the 2nd level tangible realm, I haven't been able to comprehend my own sword art so far, and I can't fully exert the strength that belongs to this realm of swordsmanship, which is more than one step worse than Brother Zhou. A trace of regret flashed in Henry Zhang's eyes. Brother Zhang is humble. Zhou Mubai arched his hands. I'm not humble. You should understand that I am a person. I hate hypocrisy the most in my life. It is what it is. Henry Zhang shook his head, otherwise, my position on the Zifu Tianjiao list would not be only the 43rd place, heard. Zhou Gou remained silent. He knew that what Henry Zhang said was right. Henry Zhang's kendo realm is not weaker than him, and his cultivation is even higher than him, reaching the 5th floor of Zifu. The only difference between the two of them is that Zhou Mubai created his own sword art. To some extent, creating his own sword art means that the sword cultivator has clearly defined his own kendo path. I saw Henry Zhang put away the ice blue flame in his palm. Chen Daoxian stretched out his right palm and said in a slow voice, the sword intent that I understand is a branch of the water-moving sword intent in the 5 Elements sword intent. I see. Chen Daoxuan's palm was first filled with rain, then white sword marks filled his palm, and finally, it turned into a star. It's a pity that I haven't been able to create my own sword art like Brother Zhou did. Self-created sword art, to a certain extent, has nothing to do with comprehension. It requires people who create their own swordsmanship to figure out the direction of their future swordsmanship. Otherwise, he is hesitant in his heart, and he will never be able to create his own sword art on his own kendo path. See this. Zhou Mubai smiled and said, I can see it, you two didn't create your own swordsmanship, it's not because of lack of talent, but because of too much ambition. He paused, especially Daoxian Yu. He pointed at Chen Daoxian, and said in a joking tone, don't you want to understand the complete sword intent of water movement? What? Hear this. Henry Zhang, who was on the side, looked at Chen Daoxian with a shocked expression, his eyes full of disbelief. What is the concept of comprehending the complete water movement sword intent? You must know that whether it is his extreme cold sword intent or Chen Daoxuan's silk rain sword intent, they are just branches of the water Xing sword intent. If you want to comprehend the complete water Xing sword intent, at least the sword cultivator is required to comprehend several or more branches of the water Xing sword intent. And every kind of sword intent is promoted to the 3rd level, the sword intent is transformed into a star, and then these several sword intents are merged into one, and then there is a certain chance to comprehend the complete water sword intent. As for how many branches of the water-moving sword intention to comprehend, it depends on the individual monk. Some monks comprehend the 2 branches of water-moving sword intent, and after reaching the triple realm, they merge into one, and they can step into the threshold of comprehension of water-moving sword intent. And some cultivators, even if they comprehend more than 10 branches of water-moving sword intent, after they are merged into one, they cannot step on the threshold of water-moving sword intent. Even if he was as strong as the hall master of Zhenhai Hall, he couldn't figure out what it had to do with it. If it is related to understanding and kendo talent, how can those monks who can comprehend the 10 branches of water-moving sword intentions have poor understanding and kendo talent? Obviously, this has nothing to do with comprehension and kendo talent. In the end, some sword cultivators can only attribute it to luck. Of course, it is not to say that after comprehending the sword intent of the water movement, the strength will skyrocket. There is no such claim. Whether it is to comprehend the extreme cold sword intent or Chen Daoxuan's silk rain sword intent, in the sword intent double realm, there is not much difference between the strength and the water-traveling sword intent double realm. At least there is no substantial gap. So, where is the gap? It's about potential. Extreme cold sword intent and silk rain sword intent, as branches of water Xing sword intent, have limited potential. For example, extreme cold sword intent, in the history of Qianyuan sword sect, extreme cold sword intent can only be promoted to the 4th level of sword intent in the end, and cannot go any further. In other words, this path is already the ultimate after reaching the 4th level of sword intent. Siyu sword intent is slightly better, up to the 5th level of sword intent. But whether it is the 5th level of sword intent or the 4th level of sword intent, it means that this path is limited. However, no matter which sword cultivator, he doesn't want to be able to see his head at a glance in the way he walks. Therefore, many sword cultivators began to make plans for the future when the realm of Kendo was still low, such as integrating sword intent and forcibly comprehending one of the 5 elements of sword intent. There are also some people with talent against the sky, or people with bad luck. The sword intent that I comprehended at the beginning was one of the 5 elements sword intent, not a branched sword intent. This kind of person, whose kendo potential is almost invisible, is the real sword cultivator among the sword cultivators, and the arrogance of the arrogance. Chapter 197. The Zhangzhou coalition was extremely fast. In just a few days, Zhangzhou Xiancheng was faintly in sight. Along the way, the tragic situation that everyone saw made everyone feel more and more heavy. The corpse tide spread faster than everyone imagined, and the closer it was to Zhangzhou Xiancheng, the more terrifying the corpse tide. These low-level zombies, under the command of Sun Fu, galloped across the sea on a sailboat. The high-level flying stallion rides the clouds and rages on the islands along the way. The Zhangzhou allied forces wiped out several waves of such swarms along the way, which wasted a lot of time. On the deck of the Spirit Void battleship, Chen Daoxian frowned and said, "Brother Zhou, Brother Zhang, look, heard." Zhou Mubai and Henry Zhang looked in the direction of Chen Daoxuan's fingers. I saw that the giant island where Zhangzhou Xiancheng was located was completely besieged by a black corpse. The black corpse tide was innumerable, besieging the entire island. This scene made everyone's scalp numb. In just a few months, it has actually eroded so far. Zhou Mubai, who had been fighting corpses for several years, couldn't believe what he saw. Whether it was him or Chen Daoxian, there was a sense of joy in his heart. Fortunately, the real target of the Lianhua Island Corpse Group was not Guang'an Prefecture, but Zhangzhou Xiancheng. Otherwise, this terrifying force cannot be resisted by Guang'an Prefecture at all. Because they swept away casually, they had found dozens of Zifu corpse servants in the corpse group. These Zifu corpse servants are at least in the early period of Zifu, and what's more, they are in the late period of Zifu. Even if they are compared with the 2 Sun Fu brothers, their strength is similar. In terms of high-end combat power, Zhangzhou coalition forces have no advantage at all. Zhangzhou's high-level cultivators have a relatively severe fault. In the entire Zhangzhou, there is only one Jindan cultivator, and he has escaped. Except for Yi Wudao, there is no real Jindan person in Zhangzhou now. And the corpse. After careful observation, everyone found that the opponent actually had 127 Zifu-level combat power. Among them, 13 of the late Zifu, 29 in the middle of the Zifu, and the rest are all the early days of the Zifu. This force has already caused a crushing advantage to the Zhangzhou coalition. But the Zhangzhou coalition forces. There are only 7 people who can reach the late stage of Zifu. Among them, Zhou Mubai, Zhang Xianling, and Taoist Hua Ling were also included in their strengths that were comparable to or even surpassed the existences of the late Zifu. As for the middle period of Zifu, there were quite a few Zhangzhou coalition forces, reaching 27. In the early days of Zifu, there were a lot fewer people, less than 40 people. In total, the Zhangzhou allied forces had a total of 71 people in Zifu, and even if the Zifu in Zhangzhou Xiancheng was added, it would not exceed 100 people. This power, even if it encounters Jindan real person, can be surrounded and killed. However, in the face of the 127 Zifu zombies, there is no advantage. The gap in high-end combat power is not the most desperate. Compared with the Zhangzhou allied forces, the most terrifying thing about the corpse group is its terrifying number. Look around. Almost all the sea surface in a radius of hundreds of miles was filled with corpses. Some of them took boats, and some simply sailed through the waves in the sea, and the target was the immortal city of Zhangzhou in front of them. Be careful. Flying zombies. In the spirit boat group, a loud shout resounded in everyone's ears. Qin Daoxian could hear that it was the voice of Zhou Mingho, commander of the coalition forces. I see. A cloud shrouded in front of him, and countless flying zombies rushed towards everyone's spirit boat. This kind of scene, everyone has encountered more than once, and has long had a wealth of experience. It's just that compared to before, the number of corpses in front of them is much larger. Let me. Henry Zhang snorted coldly. The voice just fell. He saw an ice-blue flame rise in his palm, and then, the ice-blue flame turned into a blue ice phoenix. The blue ice phoenix is only as big as Henry Zhang's palm. But on the way to the corpse group, it became bigger and bigger, until the wings spread hundreds of feet wide. The speed of the blue ice phoenix was as fast as a streamer, and there were very few cultivators present who could react. With the strength of Qin Daoxuan's consciousness, he naturally sees the trajectory of the blue ice phoenix hitting the corpse. Just when the two collided, an extremely cold force erupted on the blue ice phoenix. In an instant, in front of this group of at least tens of thousands of corpses, they were directly frozen into ice by this extreme cold force. Sky. The corpses, which were frozen into lumps of ice, fell crazily toward the corpse tide below, like a hailstorm. Pieces of corpses condensed into ice lumps fell on the sea surface, freezing the surrounding sea water, as well as the rushing corpses. An ice field with a radius of thousands of feet was formed on the sea surface below. This sword slaughtered at least hundreds of thousands of corpses, which was shocking. After the sword was over, Qin Daoxian saw an ice-blue flying sword as fast as a streamer, and got into Henry Zhang's Dantian Sea of Qi. Okay. 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 In the coalition army, the monks burst into cheers, and their morale was boosted. Originally using this big move, Henry Zhang's face was slightly pale, but seeing the soaring morale of the cultivators, he felt that the mana consumed was completely worth it. Brother Zhang, well done. Zhou Mubai laughed. As the group of flying zombies blocking the road was slaughtered by Henry Zhang with a sword, the Zhangzhou coalition did not encounter any obstacles and flew directly into the defense formation of Zhangzhou Xiancheng. Now, all the monks and mortals shrunk into Zhangzhou Xiancheng. The originally empty immortal city is now overcrowded after urgently housing hundreds of millions of people. Fortunately, the Yi family is the Jindan family after all, and it is the Jindan family that is backed by the late nascent soul cultivator. Therefore, the Yi family also has a small cave. Thanks to the existence of this cave, hundreds of millions of monks and mortals can temporarily hide in this cave. Otherwise, Zhangzhou Xiancheng, which can only accommodate millions of cultivators at ordinary times, can at most accommodate tens of millions of mortals and cultivators. It is simply impossible to take in hundreds of millions of mortals. Of course, the Yi family saved these mortals for another important reason besides most of them being from the Yi family's own clan. That is, it can no longer add vitality to the corpse group. If these hundreds of millions of mortals are thrown into the corpse group and transformed into zombies, the corpse tide will be more difficult to control. By the time, I am afraid that Zhangzhou Xiancheng will not even have a chance to support the arrival of reinforcements, and it will be overrun by the corpse tide. Although the strength of every zombie that has just been transformed by Yin Sha Qi is not worth mentioning, only one chi-refining cultivator can kill dozens or more. But the hundreds of millions of corpses are a force that even the cultivators of the Zifu and even the cultivators of Jindan feel terrified. Anyway, with Yi Wadeo's strength, he couldn't deal with a corpse tide of this scale. Actually, even with the extremely strong living force of the Tsangzhou allied forces, the monks in Tsangzhou Xianqing couldn't balance the tide of corpses in front of them. Everyone's only expectation is that to a certain extent, Qianyuan Jianzong can come out in time to save the scene. Chapter 198. Tsangzhou Xianqing. As the spirit boats slowly landed, a tsunami of cheers erupted in the fairy city. At this time, whether it was a mortal or a monk, when they saw the spirit boats, they seemed to see a savior, and they felt a sense of happiness for the rest of their lives. But a sane monk can see it. With the number of monks carried on these spirit boats, facing such a huge group of corpses, it was a drop in the bucket. The arrival of this batch of reinforcements can at most delay the fall of Tsangzhou Xianqing. As for the extermination of the corpse group, it is completely overthinking. And as time goes by, the group of corpses gathered outside Tsangzhou Xianqing will only increase. Because of the countless islands spanning more than 100,000 miles from Lotus Island to Tsangzhou Xianqing, there are always some captured fish that have not yet been captured. When these islands fall, the number of corpses will inevitably increase. Yes, residents. Yi Hongsheng, the elder of the Yi family, who is also the head of the Yi family at this time, led a group of Yi family elite cultivators, waiting outside the hall. Yi Hongsheng looked like an old man in his 50s, his face was thin, he wore a jade crown, he was wearing Taoist cum, and he was dressed in fiery red spirit armor. When he saw the cultivators of the coalition army headed by Zhou Mingho, he immediately showed an expression of joy. Fellow Taoist Zhou, I've been waiting for you. Yi Hongsheng took a few steps forward, grabbed Zhou Mingho's hands, and said excitedly. Zhou Mingho calmly pulled out his hands and said coldly, "Where's Yi Wudao?" Ah. The embarrassment and resentment on Yi Hongsheng's face disappeared in a flash, and then he smiled again. My ancestors felt that the tide of corpses was huge, and rushed to Qianyuan Jianzong for help a few days ago. It's time for Qianyuan Sword Sect. Haha, there was a burst of laughter from the crowd of the coalition forces. This request for help is really interesting. Neither the reinforcements of Qianyuan Jianzong nor Yi Wudao himself return. Shouldn't there be a dignified Jindan real person, lost his way? Ha 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 ha. A burst of laughter broke out in the crowd. Immediately, another person in the crowd laughed and said, I don't think it's very likely to get lost. Back then, Jinren Yi ran all the way back to Tsangzhou from Jinan Pass, and he could return smoothly for this distance of more than 10 million miles, not to mention the mere millions of miles. What the brother said is very true, it's the younger brother who forgot. Ha 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 ha. Hearing everyone's sarcasm, Yi Hongsheng's face turned pale, but for the sake of the overall situation, he chose to endure. It's just that he can bear it, but it doesn't mean that other Yi family cultivators can bear it. Next moment. A young cultivator of the Yi family stood up from the crowd with red eyes and cupped his hands. Which fellow Taoist said just now, please stand up. Stand up, stand up. Lei Zhen flew out of the coalition soldiers and said loudly, your grandfather Lei said this, what should you do? It's you. Yi Ziyuan's expression changed abruptly when he saw Lei Zhen. How could he not remember the person in front of him? Back then, he went to the immortal city of Guang'an Mansion alone and wanted to ask for a second-order water spirit bead, but he was disturbed by this reckless man. Now he is scolding Yi Yes family in public again. He really doesn't know whether to live or die. New hatred and old hatred, coupled with the despair and anger after being abandoned by his ancestors, made Yi Shiyuan completely explode. Okay, you hairy thief, Yi Shiyuan pointed at Lei Zhen, today you insulted my Yi family so much, how dare you fight me to the death? Just because you are a coward, why don't you dare? Okay, come. Yi Xiuyuan wanted to fly out, but was imprisoned in place by a powerful force, unable to move. Yi Xiuyuan turned around with difficulty, and saw the great elder Yi Hongsheng shaking his head at him, and a line of tears rolled down his cheeks. Elder, let me go. Yi Xiuyuan said indifferently. Xiuyuan, don't be impulsive. I know. Seeing his expression, Yi Hongsheng sighed and released the imprisoning force exerted on Yi Xiuyuan. Yi Xiuyuan felt the force of this restraint disappear, slowly straightened his body, glanced at the coalition cultivator who was glaring at his Yi family, took a deep breath and said, Elder, over the years, I've had enough. It's gone. Xiuyuan. Yi Xiuyuan ignored the dissuasion, took 2 steps forward slowly, and bowed to the cultivator of the coalition army. All Zhangzhou colleagues. Yi Xiuyuan said loudly, that's right, Yi Wudao, my ancestor of the Yi family, escaped. Abandoned the city and escaped. Abandoned the million cultivators of my Yi family and escaped. Today, I, Yi Xiuyuan, make an oath here that I will no longer respect Yi Wudao as my ancestor of the Yi family. If this oath is violated, heaven and earth will perish. Boom boom boom. A dull thunder sounded. After making the great Dao oath, Yi Xiuyuan turned around, walked in front of the great elder Yi Hongsheng, knelt on the ground, and respectfully kowtowed 3 times, Great elder, fellow clan, although I, Yi Xiuyuan, don't respect Yi Wudao, I am the elder of the Yi family. Ancestor, but I have no choice but to get the blood of this body from him, today, I, Yi Xiuyuan, give it back to him. Xiuyuan. Don't. Brother Xiuyuan. A flying sword was as fast as lightning, flew out of the storage bag, and slashed across his dantian, almost cutting his body in 2. With a puff, Yi Xiuyuan fell to the ground. Ho-ho dash, the blood sprayed from his mouth, Yi Xiuyuan's eyes widened, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, I would rather. I am a loose cultivator. The words fall. Yi Xiuyuan died of anger. Brother Xiuyuan. Xiyuan. Among the Yi family members, the Yi family cultivators were in grief. Lei Zhen saw this scene, and for some reason, the anger in his heart seemed to go away for a few minutes. Seeing this scene, the other cultivators of the Zhangzhou allied forces were all shocked by the fierce temperament of this Yi Xiuyuan cultivator, and all the anger in their hearts disappeared. At this moment, an inexplicable thought emerged from the hearts of everyone, Yi Wudao is Yi Wudao, Yi family cultivator is Yi family cultivator, they should not be confused. Yi Dao friendly means. In Yi Hongsheng's sea of consciousness, a voice sounded, it was Zhou Mingho's voice, however, if your Yi family relies on a dead man in the foundation building period, you want to take command of the defense battle of Zhangzhou Xiancheng, I can only give it to fellow Daoist illusions. 2 words. Fellow Daoist Zhou, Zhangzhou Xiancheng is my Yi family Xiancheng. Shouldn't my Yi family be in charge of this war? Yi Hongsheng did not give in an inch. Both know well what it means to have battlefield command in a war of this scale. It means that, whether the coalition army gets the hand or the Yi family gets the hand, the number of people who die on the battlefield will be much less. Zhou Mingho sneered, if Yi Wudao is here, your Yi family may still be qualified to fight for the command of this war. Now, what is your Yi family? Hear this. Yi Hongsheng turned his head and glanced at the 11 Zifu cultivators behind him, then looked at the 71 Zifu cultivators on the opposite side, as well as several Tianjiao on the Zifu Tianjiao list, only to let out a helpless sigh. He took a deep look at Zhou Mingho, then bowed deeply and pleaded, I hope fellow Daoist Zhou will take pity on my Yi family million cultivators. In the end, he handed over the command. Chapter 199. Zhangzhou Xiancheng. Outside the 100 Zhanghai city wall, endless corpses attacked the defensive formation outside the city as if going crazy. Zhangzhou Xiancheng's defense formation ranks as high as rank 5. Even if true monarch Yuaning came, he could stop him for a moment. In the face of the attack of these corpses, it is naturally no problem. But although the defensive formation is strong, it cannot keep defending all the time. After all, it consumes the spiritual energy of Cangzhou Xiancheng's spiritual veins. So many zombies besieged Xiancheng from all directions, and it continued, even if the spiritual veins of Cangzhou Xiancheng were as high as the 4th rank, they could not hold on. There was only one final result: Cangzhou Xiancheng was broken. Qin Daoxian was placed in the 43rd Defense Zone by the Cangzhou Allied Forces. This defense zone is located in the southern section of Cangzhou Xiancheng. The chief officer of the defense zone is someone else. It is Qin Daoxian's old acquaintance, Yang Linyuan, the head of the Yang family. Qin Daoxian is Yang Linyuan's deputy. Faced with this arrangement, Qin Daoxian naturally wouldn't say much. Although he believes that his strength is far superior to Yang Linyuan, Zhou Mingho's judgment of his strength is still at the level of 4 years ago, which is comparable to the cultivator of the Zifu. Leading a large defense area alone, if the defense area is broken, the people in the entire Cangzhou Xiancheng will suffer. Zhou Mingho naturally did not dare to take risks. Let Yang Linyuan, a cultivator on the 2nd floor of the Purple Mansion, sit in command, plus 2 deputies. In this way, the 43 defense zone will be foolproof. Deputy Commander Chen. Deputy Commander Chen. After some inspections, the soldiers on the city wall all bowed to him and saluted. Qin Daoxian returned the salute one by one and nodded to the soldiers. In addition to the defensive formation, the corpse group was still attacking frantically, causing ripples in the light curtain of the defensive formation. Everyone knows that when the defensive formation is put away, it will be the moment of battle between the two sides. As this moment draws near, everyone's breathing became heavy involuntarily. There is no way, the black pressure in front of the corpse tide that can't see the end, the pressure on the cultivators is too great. Even Qin Daoxian felt his scalp tingle when he saw the endless tide of corpses like a black ocean in front of him. Corpse tide. So horrible. This is not something that a mere Zifu or even a Jindan cultivator can solve. I'm afraid, even if Yuaning Jinjuan saw this scene, he would feel powerless to sigh, right? Qin Daoxian thought to himself. Master Commander. After inspecting the defense area, Qin Daoxian came to the temporary command post in the 43 defense area and bowed to Yang Linyuan. The subordinates have inspected all the defenses in the defense area, and the soldiers are all ready. Nephew Chen has worked hard. Seeing Qin Daoxian, Yang Linyuan immediately stood up from his seat, greeted him in 3 or 2 steps, and said with a smile, "Please sit, please sit. Let's greet each other." Yang Linyuan looked at Qin Daoxian and his granddaughter Yang Gongwan's 2 deputies, nodded and said, "Our only goal in this defensive battle is not to annihilate the enemy, but to resist the enemy's offensive. As long as the reinforcements from Qianyuan Jianzong arrive, it will be a victory." Hearing this, Qin Daoxian and Yang Gongwan looked at each other and frowned. "Master Commander, will Qianyuan Jianzong send reinforcements?" Yang Linyuan was stunned for a moment, and then he said firmly, "Yes. Definitely." After a pause, he explained, the previous idea of Qianyuan sword sect was to lure Shinjue Renren to take action, but Shinjue Renren is too tolerant and has been hiding behind the scenes. But this time is different. Once Cangzhou Xiancheng is broken, the entire Cangzhou is in danger of being occupied, followed by Taizhou and Jingzhou. When things develop to that point, Qianyuan Jianzong will also feel a headache when he comes to clean up the mess. Therefore, Cangzhou Xiancheng is the bottom line of Qianyuan sword sect, and they will never sit back and watch Cangzhou Xiancheng fall. Hear this. Yang Gongwan, whose cultivation base has broken through to the 1st floor of the Purple Mansion, pouted and said, "I'm afraid it has something to do with Yi Wudeo's base here." Ha ha ha, Yang Linyuan stroked his beard and smiled. "Of course, that's part of the reason." As we all know, the suzerain faction and the elder faction of Qianyuan sword sect have always been at odds, but this time, the extermination of the corpse group and the complete extermination of Shinjuezhenren are probably highly unified opinions of the two factions inside the command post. Chen Daoxian listened to Yang Linyuan's words silently, and remained silent. These are common sense things in the eyes of the big family, and he heard them all for the first time. He knew that Yang Linyuan and Yang Gongwan's words did not necessarily mean to point him. Sovereign faction, elder faction. Obviously, the interior of Qianyuan sword sect is not monolithic, but also has factions. In fact, this is also quite normal. Even in the previous life, there were disagreements, conflicts of interest, and factions within each country. In this world, that's obviously the case too. It has only been 400 years since the Qianyuan Jianzong sect master succeeded. This time, for true monarch Yuanying's lifespan of 3,000 years, and primordial spirit cultivator as high as 10,000 years of lifespan, although it is not a flick of a finger, it is indeed not a long time. The Qianyuan sword sect master can firmly hold the position of the sect master, and lead the entire Wenxinghai to defeat the Xianqing Dao League, which is already an outstanding ability. It is simply impossible for her to resolve all internal conflicts and build the entire Qianyuan sword sect like a piece of iron. After all, this is a world where great power is attributed to itself. The people of the Qianyuan sword sect elder faction are willing to honor the third elder. Can the Qianyuan sword sect master kill all the elders headed by the third elder? If you really want to do this, Qianyuan Jianzong will fall into civil war and split in an instant. Whoosh! A few people talking. A shrill alarm sounded throughout the immortal city of Cangzhou. It's time to withdraw the defensive formation, Daoxian. Gong Wan. Come with me. Yang Linyuan looked serious. Yes. Lord Commander. Chen Daoxian and Yang Gongwan followed closely behind. Outside Cangzhou Xiancheng. It stopped with a shrill siren. The fifth order defense formation was slowly lifted, and as the defensive formation was withdrawn, the corpses outside were like hot water being poured into a frying pan, completely boiling. Roar! The roar that made the eardrums hurt came into Chen Daoxian's ears. The corpse group relied on the 100 Zhanghai city wall, and used the method of stacking arhats to fill in the height of the city wall little by little, ignoring that the bottom zombies had been crushed into flesh. 100 feet high city wall. Chen Daoxian didn't know how many corpses were needed to fill it up, and he didn't have the mind to count them. He only knew that the tide of corpses in front of him, trampling on the corpses of his companions, rushed towards the Cangzhou coalition forces. Sky. A group of flying zombies shrouded in cloudy clouds rushed towards the 43 defense zone. A time. The corpse group attacked the monks in the 43 defense zone in two ways. Kill. Yang Linyuan roared loudly, took the lead, and controlled the Feijian tide to chop the corpses over. The sword glow was 100 feet long, and the sword cut a huge gap in the corpse. I don't know how many zombies were killed by the sword, but soon, more zombies filled the gap and rushed towards the crowd. Don't be afraid to die. Endless. This terrifying pressure made some timid monks tremble. Chapter 200. In the face of this dazzling scene, Chen Daoxian's face was calm. After all, this is the first time he has participated in such a large-scale war. Looking at the black mass of corpses rushing towards him in front of him, Chen Daoxian's Danshan's true essence suddenly erupted, and above the sea of qi in the Dantian, a little star was like a substance, almost condensing into a star. Moment. The entire 43 defense zone was shrouded in a transparent rain curtain. Inside the rain curtain, sword energy turned into raindrops and rustled down. As soon as the corpse rushed into the rain curtain with a radius of nearly 10,000 feet, it was torn to shreds by the rain curtain transformed by the endless sword energy. In an instant, The corpse group in the 43 defense zone was almost emptied by Chen Daoxian alone. This. Yang Linyuan stared blankly at the scene in front of him, and could hardly believe his eyes. Lead the mighty. On the battlefield of the 43 defense zone, it was not just who shouted such a sentence. Immediately after, the words, lead the mighty, resounded throughout the battlefield. In the corpse, Sun Fu soon noticed the abnormality of the 43 defense zone. It's him. Sun Fu's golden pupils shrank slightly. Obviously, he recognized Qin Daoxian. Immediately, a grim smile appeared on his green face and fangs. I see how much real energy you have consumed. Say it. He waved his hand, and more corpses rushed towards the defense area where Qin Daoxian was. Even the pressure of the 42 defense zone and the 44 defense zone is light. The commander of the Zifu in these two defense zones actually had the time to observe the battle situation in the 43 defense zones with his spiritual sense. Following Sun Fu's instructions, the group of corpses coming towards the 43 defense zone was even more terrifying. Facing the group of corpses as deep as the sea, Qin Daoxian had no expression on his face, as if those killed by his sword energy were just grass and mustard. Although there were more corpses, they couldn't break into the rain curtain of sword energy constructed by Qin Daoxian. Including the group of corpses in the sky, they charged towards the rain screen countless times, but apart from being cut into pieces, they were of no use at all. Occasionally, there was a powerful late-stage foundation building zombie, relying on its strong defensive ability and recovery ability, forcibly rushed to within 100 feet of Qin Daoxian, and was chopped into pieces by a white mark. In the entire 43 defense zone, Qin Daoxian alone completely blocked the corpse group. Yang Gongwan looked at Qin Daoxian with great power. She couldn't believe her eyes. Ever since she gave up comprehending the sword intent and chose to break through the purple mansion, she thought that relying on her water spirit body, she would never be weaker than Qin Daoxian, who had not yet reached the middle stage of foundation establishment. But she didn't expect that Qin Daoxian's strength was far stronger than she imagined. Such strength. Even a late-stage cultivator of the purple mansion might not be able to do it, right? Yang Gongwan thought to herself. Time passed little by little. Soon. An hour has passed. Such a high-strength maintenance of the sword chi rain curtain to resist the corpse group, even with Qin Daoxian's real yuan reserves, is somewhat insufficient. With the constant consumption of true yuan, Qin Daoxian's face finally turned pale. Far away. Seeing Qin Daoxian's pale face, Sun Fu breathed a sigh of relief. Boy, the battlefield is not the place for you to be brave. If you want to resist the corpse group with your own strength, do you think you are a Jindan cultivator or Yuanyingzhenjuan? With a sneer, Sun Fu stopped paying attention to Qin Daoxian. In his opinion, the true essence will be exhausted in just an hour, and whether Qin Daoxian can save his life in the next attack of the corpse is a matter of two things. Qin Daoxian's dantian is full of energy. A third-grade fortune-telling white lotus is quietly suspended, and above the third-grade fortune-telling white lotus, a bright starlight illuminates the entire dantian qi si. The lotus of the third-grade good fortune. These 3 years. With the improvement of Qin Daoxian's weapon refining rank, he has promoted almost all of his magical tools. Among them, naturally also includes his natal magic tool, the white lotus of good fortune. Originally, the second-grade fortune-telling white lotus could only store about 3 times the true essence of the late-stage cultivator of foundation building, and it was promoted to the third-grade good fortune white lotus, that is, after the third-order magic weapon. The ability of fortune-telling white lotus to store true essence skyrocketed. After Qin Daoxian's test, his ability to store true yuan has only increased by 6 times. That is to say, in this third-grade good fortune white lotus, at least 18 times the true essence of the late foundation building cultivator is stored. Coupled with the amount of real essence stored in Qin Daoxian's own dantian qi si, Qin Daoxian's amount of real essence has reached more than 19 times the original. In other words, At this level of consumption, he can support 19 hours. Even. It is far more than 19 hours. You must know that during the battle, Chen Daoxuan's true essence can also be continuously recovered. With his true essence recovery speed, Chen Daoxian can basically support him indefinitely if he eats another Huiyuan pill. Unless the spiritual energy inside Sangzhou Xiancheng is exhausted, he cannot recover his true essence. Soon. 10 hours passed. The rest of the zones were all at risk, and only zones 42, 43, and 44 were the most secure. But if you look closely you will find it. The corpses in these 3 defense zones are all charging towards the 43 defense zone. The 42 defense zones and the 44 defense zones are almost reduced to the existence of soy sauce. The rest of the Zifu cultivators were all guarding against Chen Daoxuan's attack by the opposite Zifu corp servants, affecting Chen Daoxuan's performance. After all, they couldn't last as long as Chen Daoxian in the group attack. For 10 hours, Chen Daoxian maintained this posture, motionless. Ahead, the rain curtain transformed by the sword energy did not stop for a moment. Outside the city walls of Zhangzhou, the countless tides of corpses were stopped by Chen Daoxian by himself, unable to take a step beyond the thunderous pool. Originally, with the heat of the war, Sun Fu had already forgotten Chen Daoxian, the fool who made big moves as soon as he came up. But a full 10 hours passed. He was stunned when he found that Chen Daoxian was still maintaining this offensive. How is it possible? Sun Fu murmured, how can someone in this world have such a terrifying reserve of true essence? Although I couldn't believe the scene in front of me, I saw Chen Daoxuan's comfortable appearance. How can there be a little bit of real essence exhausted? Sun Fu was not surprised when he said that he could hold on for another 10 hours. After a little induction, Sun Fu discovered that in just 10 hours, nearly 10 million zombies died at the hands of Chen Daoxian. This number has reached a tenth of the entire corpse tide. If it takes another 10 days and a half to go on like this, this corpse tide will be pacified by Chen Daoxian alone. Thinking of this, Sun Fu felt an absurd feeling in his heart. The corpse tide that made the entire Zhangzhou feel like a great enemy would be consumed by a mere foundation-building cultivator. Sun Fu only felt that he couldn't let out a breath in his heart, which was extremely uncomfortable. Withdraw. The order was issued, and the offensive of the corpse tide suddenly slowed down. All the corpses retreated in a forbidden manner, and not a single zombie was fighting. This is also the horror of the corpse tide. No disobedience to the controller's orders, which the cultivator army simply cannot do. Call. Seeing the black tide receding in front of him, Chen Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. Behind, Yang Linyuan and Yang Gongwan looked at him with shock and strangeness. Chen Daoxian turned his head, saw the faces of the two, and frowned. What's wrong? Chapter 201. Chen, nephew Chen, Yang Linyuan thought about it for a long time, but couldn't come up with a better wording. You are. Yang Gongwan, who was on the side, didn't have so many scruples, and couldn't help but ask, how did you do it? I only heard that Jiangxia's sword essence is stronger than Sun's true essence, but I have never heard that the reserve ratio. How many ordinary foundation establishment monks are there? She furrowed her eyebrows tightly. I'm afraid your real yuan reserves are more than the mana of the late Zifu monks. Fairy Yang is very praised. Chen Daoxian bowed his hands. It's not that I have a lot of real energy, but the sword intent I have learned. I am good at group attack and consume less real energy, talking. He staggered and his face became pale. If the corpse doesn't retreat, I can't hold it anymore. Yes, is it? Yang Gongwan looked at him suspiciously. Chen Daoxian nodded sincerely. It's absolutely true. All right. Yang Gongwan put on an expression of trusting you temporarily. Compared with the innocence of his granddaughter, Yang Linyuan is much more shrewd. He didn't believe in the nonsense that Qin Daoxuan's comprehension of sword intent is good at group attack and consumes less real energy. If Qin Daoxian lasted for a few hours, it can be said that his sword intent consumes less real energy. But Qin Daoxian maintained this offensive for a full 10 hours. Not to mention a cultivator in the early stage of foundation establishment, it is estimated that the real energy of 10 cultivators in the early stage of foundation establishment will be exhausted. However, Qin Daoxian was still alive and kicking like no one else. If it wasn't for Yang Gongwan's repeated questioning, Qin Daoxuan's complexion would not have changed, and it was always as rosy as ever. Obviously, Qin Daoxian has his own secrets. It's just that this kind of secret, others don't want to tell, he can't ask. He glanced at the defensive formation outside the city walls of Cangzhou Xiancheng. Yang Linyuan said with a smile, let's go to the headquarters hall together. Senior Yang, please go first. No, let's go together. Yang Linyuan didn't dare to take it, and hurriedly made a gesture of invitation. See. Qin Daoxian nodded and walked with him towards the headquarters hall. Yang Gongwan followed behind the two. Soon, the commanders and deputy commanders of a total of 97 defense zones in Cangzhou Xiancheng gathered together in the headquarters hall. Inside the headquarters hall, in the first place was the commander-in-chief of the Cangzhou coalition, Zhou Mingho. After changing his usual gentle temperament, Zhou Mingho's face was solemn at this time, but upon closer inspection, he would find that there was a faint hint of joy hidden under his solemn expression. Everyone. Zhou Mingho's voice resounded through the hall. We resisted the offensive of the corpse tide today. It turns out that the corpse tide is not as terrifying as everyone imagined. In addition to the number, the strength of a single zombie is not worth mentioning. Even the lowest chi-refining cultivator can easily strangle them. Zhou Mingho paused. In this battle alone, it is roughly estimated that the number of zombies killed in each defense zone exceeded 50 million. Boom. As soon as Zhou Mingho finished speaking, there was a violent discussion in the hall. So much. I didn't expect the corpse tide to be so vulnerable. Yeah, if that's the case, Cangzhou Xiancheng can be defended completely. There was a lot of discussion in the hall. A long time. Zhou Mingho pressed his hand down gently. The hall was quiet again. Especially our 43rd defense zone, the number of zombies killed in this zone alone is nearly 10 million. Zhou Mingho continued, therefore, we have enough reasons to believe that our Cangzhou coalition will be able to pacify this corpse mess. 43 defense zones. This is the defense zone led by fellow Daoist Yang, right? Seems like it. I didn't expect that after Yang Daoyu broke through to Zifu, his strength increased so much. The number of zombies killed in one defense area is more than the number of killings in our other 10 defense areas. Yes. Hearing the discussions of the people around him, Yang Linyuan, who was standing in the crowd, was sitting on pins and needles. He glanced at Qin Daoxian uncomfortably and said, Nephew Qin, do you want me to explain a few words? No need. Qin Daoxian smiled and shook his head. In such a fierce battlefield, only the monks who were close to the two defense zones could see the scene of his great power. As for the other defense areas, they were all busy fighting the corpse group with all their might, so they didn't care about the record of other defense areas. Encourage everyone to redistribute some materials. The commanders of each defense zone slowly withdrew from the hall. Nephew Qin, please stay. Just when Qin Daoxian raised his leg and was about to leave, Zhou Mingho stopped him. Senior Zhou. Seeing everyone leave, Qin Daoxian bowed his hands. My nephew. Zhou Mingho took 2 steps forward, grabbed Qin Daoxuan's right hand, and said excitedly, I didn't expect that a genius swordsman like you would emerge from my Guang'an residence. Ah. Qin Daoxian quickly cupped his hands and said humbly, Senior Zhou is wrong. I just happen to understand that the sword intent is good at group attack. It is very effective against these low-level zombies, but against high-level zombie groups, the effect is limited. I see. Zhou Mingho nodded knowingly, but now the low-level corpse group is troublesome, hundreds of millions of corpse groups, even if we have more than 100 Zifu monks, we can't resist them all. Nephew Chen, do you understand what I mean? Senior Zhou means. I mean, I want you to be a firefighter for this war. Firefighter? Chen Daoxian probably knew Zhou Mingho's intentions, but he still asked, I don't know what Senior Zhou is referring to. Although you are in the 43 defense zone, and the corpse group can't cross the city wall one step, the other defense zones are still a little precarious in this defensive battle, and they are almost broken by the corpse group. I want you to take into account the entire defense line of Cangzhou Xiancheng and support all defense areas at any time. This. Chen Daoxian looked hesitant. Don't worry, I will send someone to ensure your safety. You can only be responsible for clearing the low-level corpse. Say it. Zhou Mubai on the side smiled and said, I don't know if I'm here to be Brother Chen's bodyguard, can you rest assured? Chen Daoxian glanced at Zhou Mubai and said with a smile, Brother Zhou guards, I am naturally relieved. After speaking, he turned to look at Zhou Mingho. Senior Zhou, do you mean that Brother Zhou and I will set up a special battlefield rescue team, ready to intervene at any time to break the defense area and relieve the pressure on these defense areas? Right. Zhou Mingho nodded. In order to prevent the corpse from sending top-level Zifu corps servants to attack you, I will let Mu Bai guard your safety, so that you can let go. Hear this. Chen Daoxian finally understood what Zhou Mingho meant. Obviously, his performance in Defense Zone 43 today amazed Zhou Mingho and gave him the idea of being able to defend Cangzhou Xiancheng. Originally, I thought that no matter what we did, our hope of defending Cangzhou Immortal City was very slim, but in today's battle, we wiped out 50 million corpses from the enemy. As long as you fight like this 10 more times, the corpse group will naturally be wiped out. And Nephew Chen Xian, you are the biggest variable in our battle. Whether it was me or the enemy, I never imagined that you would have such a terrifying means of group attack. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.